Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the whole magazine. I almost did it again, folks. I almost did it again. Yeah, we had a name change. If you guys didn't see that episode where we changed the name, it's no longer the Quantum Consumer Podcast. Of course, on all the socials, the YouTube channel, it is now the whole magazine. And yeah, Walker had the fucking audacity to be like, "Why the whole magazine?
Why?
When you've been complaining about the podcast title forever since you've been on."
You know, you
That's
definitely
why.
asked us, like,
That's why.
what would be better? You even had a poll at some point, I think,
No,
like in the group chat.
did I?
I think you did.
Well, I did put things out, but you all didn't answer.
I did.
Well, you guys gave me some really fucking retarded ones, like just
Oh.
genuinely,
I
just
didn't
not,
like it.
I
I didn't
completely
like
believe
it.
What'd you
It
expect
wasn't
in the chat?
very
just
good.
not being like,
With all these degenerates,
Serious.
yeah, I can imagine that.
Yeah, like,
yeah.
what'd you
It's
expect?
difficult for you dealing with you guys every day. It truly is.
Deal with it.
But you know, here I am. I make do. Of course, introductions. You've heard these folks. You hear Hayes.
Yeah, it's me.
Yeah, we're back, buddy. It's been a long time since
It's
we did
been a bit.
podcast.
Yeah, when we were in the car listening to the latest episode, it
Yeah.
was like a
It was like, oh shit, we
like
really
core
need to do
memory
one.
unlocked. And you're like, oh yeah, we haven't done this in a while.
Yeah, we haven't done one in a while, so we had to get back into it. We have Cornette back on the podcast. Hello, bud.
Sir, good to be back.
I forget which one you're on. I don't know which line you're on. I think you're on 3. So yeah, that's gonna be you.
Okay.
We have, for the first time ever in podcast history, we have, what do you want to be called in this situation?
No, I don't know. We'll just go with whatever you come up with. I'm
Okay,
with
Cody.
That, that sounds
So
good
we
to me.
have Cody here.
That's gonna feel weird.
yeah, it is.
No, we have
Great
Cody.
addition. Let's make this
Yeah.
interesting. I
Yeah,
love it.
We have Cody here, or Parker, if you want, on the podcast. Long time coming. He's been off in other lands, but he's back now, and we are diving into it.
Yes, we
It's
are.
very exciting. But of course,
great.
folks, in natural order on the podcast, we have our alcohol review. Today we have Lagavulin 16, a delicious single malt Scotch whiskey from Scotland. It has notes of vanilla. It is delightfully peaty. It smells like a campfire in a glass, okay?
It really does.
You sip it, okay? If you ever see a person, unless they're trying to leave a bar, okay, chug scotch. You shoot them in the kneecap for me,
Yeah, because
okay?
obviously,
Or run.
gotta enjoy the flavor.
And here we go. Let's dive in.
Cheers.
Whoa, man.
Holy shit.
How much is this bottle?
You guys bought it for me. You said it was 120.
That's right.
I forgot about that.
Fuck
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
So of course, naturally,
Yeah, that's a good birthday present.
due to
Guess whose
imports-
birthday it is today?
Oh god, here we go.
We have to do push-ups.
Is it him?
We have to do
Yes.
It's
birthday
Cornette's birthday.
push-ups.
Wowee!
Wow.
Wowee! Happy
Hey,
birthday,
actually-
bud!
I'm gonna tell Sergeant Major.
Congratulations.
Thank
I'm
you.
actually on your birthday here with you.
Yeah,
Oh,
That's great.
Wow.
Look at that.
23.
Damn.
Wow, you're young.
Yeah, I turned.
Dude,
wild.
same, right? That's crazy.
That's
Still
just-
make more money than all of you though.
That's
That's
just crazy.
crazy.
One day.
That's
One
good.
day.
That
I believe
depression
in
be hitting.
Lagavulin 16, though. Okay, beautifully peaty.
Yeah.
it.
It
You really
is.
taste that smoke flavor to
Oh,
it as well.
It's all there. The smoke. You have vanilla. You have slight sweetness on the back end. It's phenomenal. It's a phenomenal scotch.
Yeah, I would absolutely
Of course.
never want to chug this.
It's
Ever.
it's $120 because it's imported all the way from Scotland. If you're around Scotland, it's like maybe 50, 60 bucks.
I'm gonna kill myself.
Okay. But folks, that's Lagavulin 16. It is delightfully delicious, and yes, one of the greatest birthday presents I've received.
Well aged. Came out very well.
Yeah.
Moving.
Right.
Swiftly on. Now, there's a lot to cover in today's
Yeah.
podcast. There's been so much going on in the world since our last podcast episode. One of those most notable things are the apparent epidemic
Oh.
of. Oh no, not COVID. You're okay.
Okay.
But no, I do hate that word too because
Yeah,
of it.
I
Yes.
fucking hate it.
The epidemic of false police reports of school shootings going on. Now, obviously, this has some pretty, bad things attached to it. So, across the United States, there's been about 92 false school shooting reports. And, since the Uvalde incident, police have been on their P's and Q's, as one could imagine. And so they're running into schools, as the Uvalde police should have,
Yeah.
running into the schools with guns drawn, ready to put somebody down. So obviously, it's kind of terrorizing to the children. I say children, mostly in high schools and shit. It's a big issue.
Sorry, I won't interrupt. I'll say my piece later. You start. You probably still had more of a.
Nope.
No. Okay.
You're so kind. You're not interrupting me anymore.
It's just I feel like I do it all the time on the
You
show.
do. But look at us making headway.
Wow, progress. Love
Yeah.
it.
Basically, I never even would have thought about bringing up Uvalde, like you just did, but that's definitely trying to get some of their credibility back. I still think you should always assume that these idiots will never actually protect you, and they will all act like Uvalde when it comes to saving your hide. You shouldn't trust, right? Don't trust, because that's what the kids and the teachers and all of the other law enforcement off-duty personnel had to do at Uvalde, and look where that got them. But yeah, no, this is definitely about how America is on like edge and just ready to just like, oh my God, every loud noise is a shooting. And I just told you this morning about the guy with the skateboard slamming a skateboard into the ground at a mall, and everyone was like terrified. They thought it was a shooting. What's really interesting is that guy didn't die.
Why is that?
What? Okay.
Well, for one, in this case, the police were extremely professional, and they're like, oh, there is no gun. It's just some guy whacking the floor with a skateboard, and he's mentally ill. But it's interesting that nobody shot him.
No, that's
Because it was a skateboard.
Well, I mean, like, you know how itchy people are? They're just ready to draw, and you know what I'm saying?
I think your
Maybe
your
I'm...
assumptions of
Hold on.
concealed carriers carrying in a mall
Perhaps.
is a little bit more than
Can I ask a question about this? Because I don't have too much information about this actual particular event. Where did this occur?
You know, actually, I don't remember. I just remember seeing the headline when I woke up super groggy, and then I saw that there was a phone call from Cox, and I was like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, twice in a row you've been late.
crazy.
Really stellar, dude. Really stellar. I expect nothing less, so I wasn't surprised at all.
Well, Walker says I'm based, so I'm based.
It's the
no,
only
when
reason.
someone tells you you're based, you're not based.
Yeah, no, it's usually not, especially
here.
about being late, not base behavior.
No, it's... I'm sorry, you're going to argue with Walker?
Not, yeah.
crazy.
That's crazy, right?
crazy.
Never been done on the podcast ever in all of the whole magazine. Fucking history
You almost
there.
said it.
So
I almost did.
I got a question here. Is this statistic, 92 false reports, is this a yearly or just a singular event in this year?
That's in September alone.
Yeah, actually, I just pulled up an article right now that I'm reading. I just Googled right now, just right off the bat, about this whole topic. And the very first one from USA Today. Schools across the U.S. hits with a dozen false shootings and bomb threats. And it's all critical hosts. And people are doing this intentionally. And this was just posted on the 18th of September.
I mean, how else you supposed to get out of homework, man?
Now,
Facts.
this is the weird part, because of course we've had a pretty big run of violence pertaining to guns. So we had Uvalde, we had the Buffalo, we had Uvalde, of course, being the most infamous and egregious act because of the inactivity and ineptitude of the police force there. So it's interesting to see, or sort of speculate the sort of motive behind it. Is it students who are creating these false things because they know that it's going to shut down the school for the day? Who knows? But ultimately, what's going on here is, I wouldn't be surprised if we're starting to see more things going about with schools being able to track calls, or people looking into FBI getting
This will
involved.
definitely expand the police state.
FBI
100%. Like the level of reconnaissance that the government will be able to conduct
I would
on
imagine that the
everyone else will
FBI
just
is going to get.
expand ever further.
You would hope so.
I would imagine. I truly believe that.
In a sane world, yeah. If it wasn't a bunch of crazy weirdos that ran our lives, I wouldn't be so worried about that. But they are crazy weirdos. They're just they're lizard people.
I wouldn't be surprised if the FBI. Of course, we know the FBI has a sort of interesting reputation right now with the whole raid on the Mar-a-Lago home. And they largely operate in the dark, so who knows? There could be ongoing FBI investigations pertaining to these anonymous tips. And I mean, hey, you told me a story of a somebody making a false police report. This was covered on the podcast a couple times ago. Somebody made a false police report just to get out of work, and
the security guard at the mall.
the security guard made a false school shooting report or
See,
threat.
It was a bomb threat.
At a bomb threat at a mall. And just to get out of work, her plan worked like a charm because now she's in jail.
Yeah, no
I
more
guess
work.
you got out of work.
She's
though.
out of work.
Yeah, she's out of work.
Here's the thing with that
room
bullshit.
and
I
board?
honestly
Why not?
think security guards, no matter what they're securing, need to be better screened. For example, we have a coworker. no one likes it. You know who I'm talking about. Immediately after getting out, he went to go be a security guard. Now this
Give me a
motherfucker
second.
should never be a security guard. And apparently,
I don't think he still has that job.
no, he now works at a fast food.
Like he should.
Yep.
Oh my god, I wonder who you're talking about.
Oh, we can talk about this after.
Yes,
when we go on
I
our
did.
first break.
Yeah.
I've been gone too long and I have no idea who we're talking about,
We'll
but
go on
I
our first
might
break.
have an idea.
Yeah.
You definitely know this person.
So I legitimately think people should be screened far more strictly to
You would
security.
think. I think
think
it's
you're
just. It's just ultimately. It's a lot of that is security theater because I see the security guards walking around the mall,
Yeah.
unarmed, with a radio.
And none of them look like they could take
Hey,
anyone.
do they even have cuffs on them, like on
So-
their belt?
Probably.
No, they don't have cuffs.
Probably.
At least not in Washington. When I went to the
okay,
mall.
okay.
A lot of them
Actually-
are awfully rotund as well.
Yeah.
Hold on. I actually got a good point for this. Tacoma Mall.
Designed
I was there, last weekend.
Yes,
And
I saw you.
Yeah, when I saw you, actually, yeah. I was walking out of the Dick's Sporting Goods, and I saw a cop car, which I believed to be a cop car, but I found out it was a personalized security team that actually, and he was fully kit. He had everything. He was actually law enforcement before he was a security guard. So there are security guards that work for the mall itself, but then there are people who they actually hire their own security team that is completely third party,
Yeah.
and they're paid a lot more and they're a lot more trained. That he was a veteran for about 8 years. I had a good conversation with them, and they
As odd as it may be, I do request that you make out with the microphone.
got it.
There it is. That's the beautiful
There
voice.
it is.
See,
yeah.
There it
see what
is.
I'm doing? It's like I hear myself, and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, I can hear you.
I don't want to talk to me. No.
Yeah, I just look at the levels from the
But-
detector, and it's like
You got it.
To answer your
I'm so
question,
sorry.
it's fine.
when I went
There's
to
a
the
beautiful
mall, this was about 3 months ago. One of the security officers was walking around, and he didn't have cuffs. He had those plastic motherfuckers.
Oh,
yeah,
zip ties.
yeah, you have a great point. Is the security industry is largely based off of separate companies that Tacoma Mall hires. In this example, hires outside. So obviously, the less armed people are going to be cheaper than your heavily armed.
There's
personnel.
also a lot of
And less
there's a lot-
trained, less educated.
less trained,
less
which makes
liability
them cheaper because they
less
don't
liability.
less liability. Well, I mean, a lot of that time, if they're worth their salt, as far as a security company, they would have insurance. But yeah, I think it's interesting. A lot of the security that they hire at Tacoma Mall are rather rotund, and I think the intention is for them to block the exit of criminals in those large sliding doors, so they have a covered
Nice.
like down pat. They're perfect for that. It's really interesting if you notice where they sort of congregate, because there's that central point in the Tacoma Mall where there's like a Zales and like the fucking trifecta of jewelry stores, right? Right in front of the food court. And
Yep.
so it's really interesting that you see that they have a security booth right there, because if you keep up with the news of Tacoma Mall, there's been quite a few robberies at the Zales.
Yep.
Very cool.
Very frequent. And to the point where they are keeping most of their security cages down. There's only one sort of
Entrance.
space in between the pillars that they can actually, that people
It's
and
just the
customers can
tragedy of
enter.
the commons all over again, man.
It's crazy because, you know, we have the same problem in San Francisco, for example, or California largely, where they just completely, you can no longer prosecute people. And so what does this create? What does this create? I just have a story here that the wife told me. There's a they're starting to create these shopping carts, because everyone knows that. So like Walmart, I know you already know, I told you something about the story. Walmart, of course, and most shopping centers have these carts where beyond a certain point, this is to, of course, prevent the homeless from just walking away with their fucking shopping carts, that after a certain point, the wheels lock. Okay? Well, they took this concept. I know, you wouldn't know that because you're
never
not a
done that.
degenerate
Yeah.
who tries to steal shopping carts.
I don't know about that. Wait, look at the guy.
I don't know. If I could
Fuck
take
you.
it down a hill, that'd be really cool. But they're starting to take this technology and bring it into the store. Okay, so you know how we have those normal detection things where it can detect if you have tagged items and it sets the alarm off, right? They're starting to couple that with the shopping cart locking system. So basically, a customer i.e. thief, is walking through the door with a shopping cart. It detects stolen merchandise and it locks the wheels of the shopping cart. And so there is a plethora of videos around the internet right now of people experiencing this. People trying to steal shit, the shopping carts locking on them immediately knowing what's going wrong and how you can know that they're ne'er-do-well criminals, and just immediately walking out, like without the cart, leaving it, ditching it because they know that they've been caught, and walking outside and leaving. Okay, we're seeing that more and more, and I think it's fucking stellar. However, this happened to apparently my wife is on, of course, the spouse pages and stuff, and apparently this happened to one of the peoples on the page, because he's out in the field, gotta go steal shit, right? And so this happened to a person, and it locked the carts, and she said that it's racist.
Oh God.
She said it's racist. And there's a couple of interesting things there because it's making an assumption. Because if you really want to bring race into it, you're making an assumption about things because we know what kind of racism she's talking about. And so now this is now being called racist. And I really hope that stores don't bend the knee and they just go, no, fuck you. You're stealing shit, right? The carts are going to lock up on you. Don't stop breaking the law, asshole, to steal a line from Jim Carrey. So she's complaining now because this is the thing. What's really interesting is the sort of culture that we have now where she basically openly admits to a crime, an attempted crime.
I'm the victim.
And feels comfortable admitting it and complaining about the methods that were used to thwart it and is feeling comfortable about it.
And I'm the victim.
Isn't that wild?
I victimize somebody else. I'm the victim.
That's wild.
It's interesting.
It's bullshit. That's what it is.
I mean, it's an automated system. It crosses a certain line. It locks up. It's a security system that isn't manned by anybody. Yep. It literally just needs to reach a certain point and has certain criteria. Obviously, it has to have something in there that sets off the alarm where it locks up. So automatically, an automated system has to be deemed as a racist act, which obviously is nonsense because there's no mind behind it.
With the statement alone.
Don't you know? Like the engineers that made this have biases in mind, that are unintentional.
I
right?
swear,
and so what they did was they created a system that's only going to help white people. That's what's going on, man.
Hayes,
you're gonna plan obsolescence. I got it.
Every time she drives,
there's a certain design to this.
Every
right?
time she drives and she gets a red light, the stoplight is
it's
racist.
Yeah. I want it to go.
However, the criminals are evolving. Okay. They're starting to just take.
That's racist. That's racist. You can't say that.
They're starting to take laundry baskets in and just fill it with merchandise and just walking.
What? I have a feeling majority of the time when people claim racism to a design pattern, you have to really look inside the culture within the area they're talking about. So if we're talking about like LA, San Diego, New York, many areas that have more diverse cultures within inside of it, and you have to look at the population. The ones that are going to be more exposed to problematic situations like that could be designed or could have the possibility of any aspect in that nature. It really depends on the culture you're living in, and it really depends on the society you're living in. If you're in a giant melting pot and you have more population of it, more diverse, then there's more problematic situations, but the population is led in that direction, you're going to see a lot more people affected of a different race. Mm-hmm. And compared to, like, say, if you're in the middle of nowhere, Kentucky, let's say just a random town that's just nothing but a bunch of white people that are,
It's just not going to happen nearly as much.
Well, it's because the systems aren't even in play
on what's culturally acceptable.
Yeah.
Or not.
So
when you're in a melting pot, everyone's got their own opinion on what is and isn't normal.
Right now,
exactly.
Right now, we
all
have
the different point of views.
Right now, there's a big culture war going.
And there's no monoculture. That's the other key point. Is there's no accepted American norm. Right?
Exactly. That's another thing. You can go and you have so many different people that are inside the melting pot that claim to be of another country. Like if you're in like Texas, Arizona, California, and you're in the South, there's so many people that you'll see the Mexican flag and they have pride inside the Mexican flag.
Yep.
Even if they are born American and they are Americans, they take their pride back to where majority of their family come from, which is completely good for them. I love it.
Yeah.
And I completely support it. But for some reason that develops a sense of hatred towards their own country they live in. And that's what you'll start to see.
I saw it all the time back
and
home.
We can also, let's just frankly acknowledge, because
this
isn't happening just out of nowhere. This is by design. It's by design from the political left. They are all for this. They want to turn criminals into a voter base, and they want to turn us into the criminals overnight with, believing in the first and second amendment. Okay, so this is what's happening is California is fully well known for this law that you cannot do anything to a criminal who is actively robbing your store so long as they take less than $999 worth of merchandise. And so that's why, don't believe me, go look online. A simple Google search where you can see videos of people filling trash bags of merchandise, say at Walgreens, pharmacies, and like that. And by the way, they have so much money. No. You don't understand. At the large macro scale, sure, Walgreens is doing pretty well. On that micro scale, guess what gets taken away from that community? The Walgreens and CVS, who can no longer afford to operate in that location because it has been made acceptable to walk in there and steal $800 worth of merchandise. Okay.
See, I'm actually 100% for it, and I hope these companies move to other locations, and because this is going to build an ideal within that society, realizing, okay, there are starting to become consequences. Yes, it's gonna hurt the companies, but the company's gonna afford it. They're everywhere.
It's gonna have almost the exact opposite effect because hang on, just 1 second. The California government, let's just take California as a strict example here. The liberals in California will do nothing because it is entirely 100% their policies and their fault as to why this is happening. It will be immediately curtailed to not the people. A small percentage of the people will be like, wow, this is really fucked up. I need to move. So that's why you have the grand exodus out of California into Texas.
Right.
And a lot of people are saying like, oh, they're just going to turn that state. No. A lot of people are leaving there because they don't like California politics, because they don't like what's happening in that state.
But what are they dragging along with them?
They're not dragging any of it in.
They're dragging California politics with them.
No.
When they leave?
Okay. So the part about like, I don't like this thing, i.e. California politics, California ideals. Why the fuck would I pack that with me as I'm taking it somewhere else?
So you say that.
I'm saying.
You say
but
that.
They do that in Colorado.
No, California, Colorado's been blue for a very long time, and you can't blame Colorado.
It has been in balance for 30 years.
Yeah,
Listen. When the California started moving back home to where I'm from, my mom was telling me that their neighbors, they moved in about a year ago now, and they literally called the police on my mom because they were flying the American flag, the Army flag, and the Marine flag, because my brother and then me. And they literally called them and say, that's not acceptable. You can't be showing your, what did the fucking bitch call it? Like,
patriotism?
Yeah. You can't be showing that. That's against the law, yada, yada, this. They take that shit with them.
Right, and you know what your mom should have done?
She pulled out her shotgun.
Yeah.
That's exactly what she did.
Welcome to Texas, bitch.
But listen, right? You know what I'm talking about. I'm not sure why you're kind of hung up on this, but like, you understand that like eventually those people will make life unlivable in their society, and they're going to go to other.
I say the
places.
vast majority of people who are fleeing California in droves, who, mind you, one can afford to leave, don't want anything to do with California.
Most of the ones that
there's
going to
be. I'll give you 25%.
The Champagne liberals. Are the ones that are leaving.
I'll give you 25% of Californians who are leaving and migrating, if you want to call it that. Leaving California are likely to take some of that bullshit California politics with them. And let's be entirely real. Denver, vastly liberal.
Guess what?
Austin, Dallas,
most of those
vastly
people
liberal.
Just are like from California now.
Just like many major metropolitan areas. Cities breed liberalism. It's just a replication point. It's a factory. They come in. Oh, I love the city life. Okay, bitch, you are paying $1,800 for a 200 square foot apartment.
Yeah,
they love that. They love that. They rent
it's high
it.
Status.
They don't want
it's high status.
Right. It is identification marker of what party you belong to and which one you have right think.
Like
good job.
you could spend the same amount of money for a ranch style home on the periphery of the city, and you'd be getting more for your money. It would be safer. It would be quieter, more peaceful. But it doesn't have the same level of virtue.
Bullshit.
No, to these people. These sick, twisted people.
There's a lot to do with consumerism and shit like that because you can't nearly be as good of a consumer.
It doesn't have the status.
When
it's
you're
the
out
difference between
in
a Porsche
when you're out in
and
the fucking
literally
country,
anything
right?
else.
Go ahead. I see you wanting to say something.
No, I was just gonna throw it in there and be like, okay, so now everything we're talking about, back to our original topic, with the fall shootings, how is these contrasts actually reflecting on our topic right now? I'm just curious.
'Tis the nature of the podcast, my friend.
So this
Yep.
is what we,
And just
okay.
keep
Okay.
going.
I'm just.
I did want to
Actually,
answer.
I'm
I
trying
did want
to-
to say something
actually.
about what you said earlier.
Okay.
Hang on, just a little bit of lore. So podcast lore. This original podcast was going to be called Down the Rabbit Hole. But,
I get to see the relativity
can
behind
you
that. I like
but
it.
go ahead and look up that on
Yeah,
Spotify
I'm
and tell me
sure.
how many podcasts are called that.
Down the rabbit
I
hole.
just completely avoided it.
Yeah, no.
Because
Good.
I didn't want to say, oh yeah, no, I'm so like telling people about the podcast. No, I'm down the rabbit hole number 75. You just have to scroll down a little bit to find it, right? So I didn't want to do that.
I like the originality with your name. It's
yeah.
Yeah.
So the whole magazine. Also,
Down the
I
coxhole.
made that artwork, by the way.
Down
I'm
the
pretty
co-
proud of it.
What?
Down the coxhole.
So Hayes, what was it that you were gonna say?
I wanted to say something. So you said like, hey, you support the, all these businesses leaving these areas where, criminality is totally, protected and, whatever. Well, thing is, there won't be consequences because these people will just say and cry, oh, racism again and again and again and again. They will learn nothing, and they will make every other corporation that's weaker than anyone else just bow to them. Everything, right?
Yeah.
And then something you said. Oh no! The other thing you said was that the companies will be fine and whatever. You mentioned that no, it'll hurt the local communities that when they leave. But I got something worse than that that'll hurt local communities. Let's say we're talking about Walmart, right? Walmart's been known to like go into local communities, deep in Rio Rhineland, and just basically flood the market and just like, oh, well, this is better than the mom and pop shop that we're used to. And then mom and pop go out of business. But when what if mom and pop did stick around? What if they were competitive enough and people were loyal enough and Walmart is still there? They're not going to go out of business. They can stay there as much as they like. But like mom and pop stuck around, right? Well, if they're going to use these, auto theft cart machines, to stop losing money in whatever little way they can, and then all of a sudden it's called racist. And then Walmart's like, yeah, you know what? We're not going to do that anymore. That's racist. We're not doing it. And they use social pressure and social cues and social proofs to basically, browbeat people like mom and pop to not use it anymore. That's more damaging, I think.
No, I think
That's
that's
the
just
insidious nature of this shit.
so. That's just like the shadow dealings that happen with the left. I think that happens all the time.
It's cultural power.
I don't think it's going to necessarily like harm them. What's going to be more damaging ultimately to the community is just the simple fact that this behavior that is being condoned by the leftist government is going to be happening.
It's been condoned for 30 years.
Exactly. So it's
not new.
We're
It's
still,
just that
I know,
now
no
it's
one-
protected.
I know. No one's saying it's new, but these are the ramifications. Walgreens, CVS's are all closing down in San Francisco because they're just getting robbed blind. They cannot do anything. There is no help because Big California says no, sorry. And so the CVS's, Walgreens leave, and so what's happening? We already see this. People are leaving in droves because what's happening is you have high crime in an area. Ultimately, this is good for California because it means that the economy is going to fucking crumble. More and more people are going to leave. They're going to have less population, i.e., less voting power in future Congresses because of that.
No.
They're going to damage themselves.
It's gonna be
they're
the same
they're
shit.
damaging this. No, because
In fact, it's going to make
voting
everything
power
worse.
voting power is based off of
Look,
population.
If citizens from other states had to live in another state for like 10 or 15 years before they were allowed to vote, that might be okay. But it's not. That's not what happens.
long term. That was a very long.
Yeah, I don't
long
want
wait period.
Look, I don't care. I don't want Californians voting in my elections.
I mean,
Fuck
it's
off.
already blue.
I will round you all up and send you back to California.
And you know what's
you'll
really
pay for the wall.
Hey,
Yeah.
you know what's really crazy? A lot of people don't take into the idea because he said population biggest concern. That is probably the biggest point when it comes to voting. But if you ever notice, most of California covers a huge part of the United States, right? If you travel throughout California itself, most of the population that votes and most of the votes you're going to get are going to be the most populated areas. Therefore,
metropolitan areas.
San Francisco, LA,
Yep.
Sacramento, San Diego. These are all areas that are melting pots and full of people that
And
have
not
to
to mention-
live within this short.
And not to mention, typically the people of liberalism, leftists, that is where they thrive because it is as far as from the traditional American views of
Also,
American
all the
way of life
services
Yeah.
and
as possible.
Now,
goodies and
think
gifts.
about the
And there's-
other parts of California. Like, think about the Grapevine. If you're driving from LA and you say you want to drive up to Oregon or Washington, you have to go through the Grapevine. You're going to drive all through that country area, all the farmland. If you talk to the locals there, I mean, you would probably sit there and talk to them, and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between them and somebody from Texas.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Truthfully,
But
I went on leave.
Yeah.
Down, I think, Thanksgiving of 20. And yeah, all of Northern California are conservative. If in the United States, if voting was based off of square miles, we would have been conservative for a very, very fucking long time. But it's because they have population density in those super, super large cities. LA, San Diego, Sacramento. You go over to New York. New York, fucking Democratic for as long it's been around. Like, that's just where they can condense all the people, and you can subject them to all of the propaganda. Can you imagine for a moment driving down I-5, okay, going south, and all along the agricultural parts of California, Mount Shasta, going down all the way down, and seeing how many signs that just say "fuck Gavin Newsom"? you would be so relieved, and you're like, "Holy shit, no!"
I mean, I can probably feel for these people, but like we were just talking about hyphenated Americans, I'm a Colorado American, and I just don't want you here.
Yeah.
That's
the left.
I
of
just
course, hey,
don't
I
trust
don't
them.
like California at all.
So-
Yeah.
I was born and raised there. I don't like it. It is
Same.
a terrible place. It's
And
a terrible place.
I come from straight out of San Diego, so
Yeah,
I
I'm literally
totally understand
Literally
this.
just an hour away from you. Like,
Yeah,
it's-
we know what big
I mean,
population
hey,
is.
Let's agree. San Diego came a long way.
Yes.
San Diego was like as worse as Chicago. Okay, it was terrible, but they did some great things. The mayor of San Diego really did a good job throughout the history of San Diego and brought that place up. But like,
Yeah, it did, because, I mean, talking about, what, early 2000s?
not good.
Yeah.
Not good.
Yeah, no, that was not the
So-
greatest time.
Let me ask this. I grew up most of my life in the butt fucking nowhere in Texas.
Yeah, with a name like Lubbock.
Yeah, fuck you. Yeah, anyone here who knows Lubbock, kill yourself. And now, when I lived in the country, there was no such thing as who you want to vote for, who you want to rule this place. It was all about, can we make it through this winter? Can the farm survive? Do we have enough cows to feed this part of the state? Are there enough hay bales? Shit like that.
Right, because
There was no fucking worry.
Yeah, the whole focus is entirely different. It's
You
no
live in the
longer
real world.
It's you live in like, you have an industry, like
Mm-hmm.
there's agriculture, and it's a fucking.
I remember.
You could not give a shit what's going on in the current elections.
No.
If there's an early frost, fuck.
I remember it was 2012.
right?
If it's still raining and you have to bring in the fucking hay, oh shit.
Yeah, it was 2012. We had the biggest snowstorm that I was alive for, and it was 6 feet of fucking snow dunes and shit.
In
It was,
Texas?
yeah,
Okay.
it was the worst snowstorm I've ever been a
Lubbock,
part.
is Lubbock northern or southern?
Northern.
Northern. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that kind of...
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm literally.
It's still Texas. You hear the word snow.
So we're talking about, like,
you think
northern by
Texas.
Oklahoma northern?
Yeah, that's Oklahoma is
Like in the,
Yeah,
in the
like
top,
right
in
there?
the top
Yeah.
hat. In the
Yeah,
top,
top
hat.
half, right? We're talking
in the
about
top-
right there.
right up
In the top hat of Texas.
the flip off view. Yeah.
The 10-gallon hat.
We're like right by the
10
border.
gallon hat, yeah.
See, that makes a lot of sense. I
Yeah,
get
yeah,
it.
I
Yeah.
can see snow.
And
Is that like a usual, like every year thing? You get
yeah,
snow?
but it was never that bad.
Oh, never that bad.
Never
Yeah,
that
6
bad.
feet's pretty
Yeah.
crazy.
It's like if
And,
we got like 3 foot of snow in Washington. Like
Yeah, no, it's crazy how the weather keeps changing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're supposedly gonna have
every year.
a warmer fall this year, but anyway, sorry.
I
You
doubt
go.
it.
Yeah, and the whole time during that, I remember too, because I worked for. I started working at a young age, and there was a cotton farmer, not far from me, and he was worried that his farm, because over the years his farming land has been overused, starting to lose its nutrition value, shit like that, and he was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna sell this land and give it to a cattle farmer. He'll take it.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah, he
That
took it.
manure and
Yeah, he got like 12 million because he had like 300 acres.
nice.
And the moment the snow melted,
300 acres of ready to go pasture
Mm-hmm.
is quite nice.
and he literally told me, as he was like, he fired me, but it was more like, hey, I'm selling the area.
Yeah, you're.
Sorry.
He'll let you go.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just not going to
And
be able to work.
because I was the tumbleweed remover. I walked in front.
Oh,
I walked in.
That's a job.
I walked in front of the
Oh,
stripper
no.
and threw tumbleweeds out of its way.
There were strippers at your work?
Yeah, they were hot as fuck.
Crazy.
Yeah,
They had
in the field, like
Yeah.
really weird.
Wow, dude.
Wow,
They
Lubbock's
can't be
starting to sound
walking
like a nice
forward.
place.
Don't you think they get pricked by the fucking tumbleweeds? That's
Nah,
crazy.
fuck 'em.
the tumbleweeds.
Don't
don't
fuck
Hey,
That's
fuck
how
hey,
you
if you
say
keep topping like that,
Is
the
that just a
military is going to be like,
BDSM
we need to
thing?
put a military base there.
Is that a BDSM thing?
What? They're bashing someone's face in with a tumbleweed?
Yeah, if they're in
Probably.
a bikini.
Have
Okay.
you ever hold on. So, have you ever been hit by a tumbleweed?
No, I know, but they're not nice.
There's no
I know
fucking
they're
pleasure
not-
in it.
I know
Yeah.
they're not nice.
The most 100-mile winds, and you're sitting there in front of a fucking stripper that if you trip, the motherfucker ain't seeing you, he about to run over you. You get hit by a fucking tumbleweed, say hello to God.
Yeah, not many people know because like everyone talks about the great emu wars of Australia. Not many people know about the great tumbleweed wars of the United States.
We're still
No,
fighting.
like no shit. Like
We're
the Department of
still fighting
Agriculture.
Of Oklahoma.
I lost my grandpa in it.
Tumbleweed just came up and ate his ass.
Just stole him. He was like, son, survive.
yeah, that's
Disappeared.
Tumbleweed bit him and he just
But-
turned into a tumbleweed.
Original point. It's no one was worried about at that time. What's our governor doing?
Right.
Hundreds of people got together, including me, and just took snow off the roads so the farmers could continue to work.
Man, that's
Well,
Because
it's-
those fucking
it's
tumbleweeds.
amazing because and
you
in
imagine?
stark contrast, because a lot of people don't understand that California, 90% of it is agriculture. Not many people understand that. There's a lot of orange orchards in
insane.
California.
I didn't know that.
There's a lot of avocado orchards.
Majority
in California.
of cattle farms for big industries are in California.
They're huge numbers, and so just like how you know why your people didn't have to worry about what the governor was doing, is because the governor wasn't actively trying to fuck you over.
Yeah, that's true.
In California, that's all it's been. That's why the farmers and agriculturalists of California take the time out to put that banner on their fence that says "fuck Gavin Newsom." Okay, because their policies are just. I can't sit here and think of the rational answer as to why you would want to destroy your own state's economy, other than because you're evil.
So
They're spiteful mutants.
I got a question. The governor of Texas just put out a bill, a bill, but you know what I mean. And he just put out, because all of the farms in Texas, I'm not sure if y'all know this, at least all the ones that aren't cattle or horses, all of our land there is starting to deteriorate, starting to go down. We're not producing as much food anymore, shit like that. A lot of our business is going into cattle because you don't really need good land for that. You just need grass or hay. He put out a whole bunch of fucking money for the farmers, and they're doing a project like renutritionizing, or however you say it, the land. Like they're I saw my old man, the person he lives next to, just putting little balls into the ground every about 10 feet. And apparently when it rains, it just blows up and a whole bunch of nutrition goes
Yeah,
into
so
the
like
land.
so like you have major agriculture, right? I'm into gardening, so this is shit I have to know, right? So you have NPKs counts that you have to worry about. So nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium that you have to monitor in your soils. So like every plant that you are growing requires those three basic nutrients. And so what they're doing is just adding fertilizer into the ground. And there's multiple ways that you can do these things. When you go all the way back to, say, Tudor period, which is like medieval England, they were aware of plants needing some sort of specific thing. They had no idea the science. And so
They just knew it worked.
They just knew shit worked. And so you had bone meal that was being tossed into the fields. You had
Minecraft.
So,
You had blood that was being tossed into the fields, right? Mm-hmm. Because they just knew it worked. And so actually it was around, I think it was Victorian period where actual large manufactured fertilizers became a thing. And we're talking about those pelletized sort of things. So you can rejuvenate your field. Because before that, you would have a crop rotation, right?
Yeah.
Crop rotations became super important in agriculture because they would drain all the nutrients out of the soil and they would have to leave it fallow, which is the word for it. They left it fallow for a year, 2 years, and they just cycle through their crops, right? They have a bunch of fields. They use this the first year, the second, third, fourth, etc. Another thing that they used to do was they would plant clover. And so they would plant clover in the field, and then they would plow it and churn all that into the soil, trying to revitalize all the nutrients in there. Because clover specifically is actually really interesting because it actually harbors nitrogen inside little nodules on its roots, and when you put that back into the soil, it will actually leach that out into the surrounding soil. Nowadays, we largely rely on manure, We rely on the large manufactured industrial fertilizers and shit like that. So that's likely what's going on. And you know what Gavin Newsom would do? Governor. I just combined those two words. Gavin Newsom. He would have just said "fuck you," because the focus, of course, he's a leftist, so their kingdoms and their focuses are on the cities. But then it draws the other question: then why are you letting this shit happen in your cities? Why are you so for crime? Why are you just letting people run amok? Why are you letting homeless people shit in the streets?
Because those people are spiteful mutants.
Because
they run everything.
Because it's bio-Leninism, and we can get into that later. Okay.
So you're definitely going to have to elaborate on that one.
I will.
Please.
We want to do that right now?
To my understanding of what's going on with that particular situation, I feel like there's a big fear going on. A lot of doubt. I've been gone from this country for a good period of time, and I've seen so much change. It's been a whole year, and I finally came back, and I can already see the differences inside the society.
Yep.
I was sitting there, and there was that one time when I've been in different countries for the last 5 years, multiple times, and I've just seen the country change multiple different times.
Is this the most drastic change?
No.
Okay.
Last time I was in Africa in 19, it was.
Okay.
Because when I came back, then everything started spiking with COVID, and then we started having all the riots, and everything started getting crazy. And I went from a country where sensibly everything was kind of stable at one point. It was like you saw little red flags, but you didn't notice the big intake. And then especially when all the riots happened, and then you had cops trying to do their job. You had cops that obviously sucked at their fucking job. You just had a mix of different people, and you started to see all these red flags become so much problematic issues, and people dying, people were getting shot, it was just chaos. And that's all I was seeing in the news, and I'm like, wow, the whole country's going to shit. This is great. And I went back home and I saw everything just shitty. And then I just think about it. When these cops want to go and do their job, and then in California, if you have a place where there's nothing but crime all the time, you got gangland in LA. People the country, half the state literally has a criminal organization almost in every location, but that is in the southern part of California. Mm-hmm. And you just have nothing but gang violence everywhere because it's if you go to other countries, good example, Africa. I have seen different places of Africa that have clans, and it's completely norm to the society. And the one thing that's very similar to these clans, and then big places in America like LA, San Diego, New York, and Florida, if you have a bunch of gangs, it's almost the same operation. But the thing is, if you go to other countries, they're not labeled as gangs, they're labeled as a religious belief system or ideals that bind people together, that you can, if they were in America, we would be like, that is a gang, that's a terrorist organization.
Speaking frankly, America just doesn't have the social cohesion to have anything beyond a criminal enterprise. We just don't like each other that much.
Well, that's
right.
That's the interesting thing, because to my knowledge, a lot of African countries' economies are obviously trash, but that's because of other social issues. A lot of it is pertaining to the crime, right? Is encouraged to a point because that's their economy.
Yeah.
That is their economy. There's a local drug, like a bark that people chew.
It's not really a bark. It's very similar. If you look at it, it looks like cotton. And it's legal in majority of places on that continent, and it's cotton, and it's this weird thing that they chew, but it's not an opioid, but it's very similar to if someone was doing cocaine, because you'll see them get very hyper, and they take it like they're working. Like back in the day when Mexico had their Coca-Colas and they had cocoa inside it, and you'd actually do it. It was the same process. So most of the workers
just
are
an
going to
energy
see.
drink, bro.
Yeah, it pretty much is. It's like the military. You know, always drinking their energy drinks first thing in the morning.
And so, if
Very
it wasn't
similar.
for these criminal organizations in those countries, they would largely not have any economy to speak of.
True, because one of the biggest things about some of these countries that I'm not going to divulge, and I'm sorry for the listeners, I can't give too much information. Yeah. But with a lot of them, you'll notice that the government there in other countries will take advantage of their people, and they'll make more taxes on some of the smallest things. Like you'll go down a road and you're going to have to pay a certain tax rate every single time you cross into a different domain that is owned by a different clan, that is owned by a different entity with inside there that's just based off the population. And the government will utilize that and make money and revenue just based off you transporting yourself from one place to the other. And then you have organizations that completely are against the government, and then all of a sudden you just have to take their way, and you can pay one time, and they use this economical standard as a way to get people to fall for them more. Even though these people are very problematic, and they have a lot of issues and bad agendas, but they know how to convince the population that is struggling to feel like they should go their direction. So if you see poverty, they will provide food, water, and easy ways of income just to get their support.
Yeah.
Very similar to the construct of what we do here. If you notice big industries do the same thing here, like Walmart. You find an area that is really, really poor, and like, hey, well, we have cheap prices. Let's just throw a Walmart there. They're gonna love it. Then that goes back to the statement that Hayes was talking about with all the mom and pop shops. They can't really afford to compete, but if they could, it would still be a fight.
Yeah.
The term that I mentioned earlier, bio-Leninism, is exactly what the left is doing. It is a slow process, but it is a process nonetheless. Lenin came to power with this same ideology, where you have the outcasts of society, criminals, LGBTQ, that includes all of them, right? You have anarchists, all the people who would normally be ostracized in every other society in the world.
Normal, healthy societies.
And you give them things, right? You give them high status inside the society.
Power.
They are more loyal to you, right? This is exactly what Lenin did. He took all the people, the poor people, all of his ruling class and ruling party was poor people, because he gave them everything. And if the organization or his people were to fail, they have so much to lose. Whereas if you have the normal aristocrat or the bureaucrat who has money, who has affluence, they have pretty much a job to lose, and they still have money, right?
Consider this right?
is
the
what-
difference between a middle managing bureaucrat who was just a midwit who worked in the fields, didn't like it very much, but now he's in charge of
A city.
pork safety,
Yeah.
the safety of pork levels and whatever, right?
Yeah.
Versus a supply sergeant in the Tsar's army, right? Another type of middling manager, right? Probably won't go much farther than that in his career, right? Couldn't be an officer, wasn't didn't have royal pedigree, but the thing is, that sergeant does more work. He does better work. He's more resourceful. He's more useful, and he's just a better man. But the loyalty is different, right?
So this is what the left is doing, right? So we have all of the people that they're using. Can you name for me the leftist voter base? Which group of people vote for Democrats more? LGBTQ.
Of course.
Activist, pretty much majority of activists.
Antifa, a actual terrorist organization.
Hold on, what? Antifa?
Anti-fascist, which are ironically supporting fascism.
But
The
then
black
again-
community, the women, because of course, let's dissect this. What is the point? We want to get the people who are the outcasts, so criminals, right? LGBTQ, who would be ostracized in every other society on Earth. Okay, we turn them into our voter base. Okay, because we give them everything. We gave the right to marriage, the ability to marriage to the gay community. Okay, they did all these things to secure their voter base. We see all the shit that's happening right now in schools, right? Transgenderism being pushed in schools right now. We have drag shows going on in school right now. People who would be ostracized in other countries because it's arguably mental illness. Pedophile rings, right? They're now MAP is now a approved thing in LGBT community.
Like, there's a reason
Minor
why.
attractive.
Hold on. Now, just to kind of talk on that point real quick, because I did have this conversation with other people within class of psychology before, because this was one of the main topics when it first came out, and it was very important. So, all right. Does it have to be that close?
Yes.
Yeah, it really
Yes,
does.
it does.
Okay, I
Yeah.
thought you guys could hear me.
I think part
You
of the
got
problem
it.
is like the audio levels aren't very high
Okay,
on our
so
microphones.
honestly, so in a psychological standpoint, I'm not a professional about it. I just like to study it and try to have a better understanding from this point. there are so many different styles of perspective when it comes down to sexual orientation. And yes, they try to evolve the idea that pedophilia is one of them, where they have older people intrigued with younger people, which for a very long time, all across the United States, we all feel the same way. It just isn't right. Kids should not be subjected to that. But the question that I always kind of find strange is if we're gonna stand there and give credibility to this, and they're gonna in the states they're gonna say that this is actually a sexual orientation that it's based off a psychological point in someone's brain. Why are we subjecting them to all these other different sexual orientations? If you're going to sit there and try to say that this one's not good, but this one's good, you're kind of contradicting your own standpoint. I mean, you sit there and you guys are saying we have drag shows in schools.
Yeah.
So
welcome back to the States with that.
Which direction is this going to lead? I mean, are you
it's
going to
create more?
It's super
right?
simple.
And is it going to if we're going to sit there and people are going to start supporting the idea of older people being okay to be attracted to younger people? Is that going to start? Are you going to start being okay with them subjecting that to schools?
The answer,
Yeah, of course.
That's
the point.
Hang on. It depends on who you are. If you are part of the left who is utilizing bio-Leninism to secure power and to change the United States and take ultimate control, yes, you are all for it. Even though if your deep morals say otherwise, the need for power is what the driving thing is. The average American is be like, no, fuck that. So that's why what we sing in schools.
no.
Because what did Lenin do? Took over the education system. What is Xi Jinping doing? Taking over the school system. If you can train every subsequent generation to vote Democrat, you are the person. You are the guy.
You're starting with the generational change, but the whole thing is, if as a person, because this is going to be, let's take out the politics for a second for this question. If you feel like it's okay to completely change the perspective of a child growing up, I mean, I get it. There are some things that they should be more open to. In the past, there's been a lot of problems in the past. A lot of people have not been open to others. There's a lot of hate that gets stemmed based off just not understanding change, not understanding one's own ability.
Humans are naturally opposed to change.
Yes. So where do you draw the line? Where is the part where as a parent for your own kids that you're going to sit there and look at your kids and see what are you okay for them to understand, especially at an early age? Because I've been noticing this in all the way to grade school. And these kids in their development stages, like I would say the psychologist Eric Erickson that helped develop the stage theory within every single child when it comes to psychology. They're building memories and they're going to build their characteristic traits in every single way they perceive the world based off what they're learning in school at these ages.
Yep.
So if you're going to be producing nothing but sexual orientation at such a high rate instead of letting them just be kids, I mean, their imagination is one of the most strongest things at the ages is when they're going up to 13.
There's a statistic that is available.
Most people think it's
They did a study. They're doing studies right now about the age group. So like from high school below. Okay, every year they do like a percentage of what percentage of this group of children is going to identify as LGBTQ. Okay, you go back say a couple years ago, it was around 5%. Okay, you go back to say 2 years ago. Okay, it was at 10%. There's an exponential increase, and they say that in the next year, it is going to be a 50% chance that your child, and this is not because of like the world changing. No, it's because of exactly what you're saying. Is we are subjecting children to issues that they should not really be thinking about right now. Right? It should be personally, my line is sexuality, and essentially what your modern day college class of gender theory or whatever will be needs to be completely removed from high school and below. It should not have any place in those things because it has nothing to do with the essential need to know things that should be taught in schools. Our core ed is most important, and we're seeing that just become completely cast to the wayside. Instead, now we're developing things in Washington State like cultural punishment, which is now you have to take the child's race into account when you're dishing out punishment in schools. It's a thing that's happening. And now in California, no, you can completely, a math teacher can just randomly go into how they like to, this wife can talk about how they like to have sex with their other wife in school, in class with an elementary school.
You see, and
It's
see,
wild.
If my kid was out there doing that and came home and told me that that is what they heard from their teacher, I would be so. It's just so inappropriate.
It is.
Because if
But
I'm,
God help
disgusting.
you if you go to a student teacher conference or what is it called, the
PTA?
The PTA. God help you if you go to a PTA meeting and you start reading line per line, verbatim, from the books in these libraries for children to read. They'll be like, no, that's inappropriate. You can't say that.
The Virginia School Board, this was, I don't think you were here for that. Virginia School Board, a mother goes to the Virginia School Board and is saying, hey, I'm concerned with the content that my child is being made to read in this school system, and has a book that is essentially homoerotic pornography that is now part of, just available in the school library. It's just there.
Didn't they say she couldn't say that?
They stopped her as she was reading verbatim. I've never done it with a man before. Blah, blah, blah. Ma'am, stop. That's very inappropriate. And then that is what sent everybody. It's not appropriate for a group of adults to discuss, but it's okay for your child to read behind closed doors. California, they're able to give your child medication, psychoactive medication. We're talking about like ADHD medication without your knowledge. And what are we seeing? People are speaking. They can't speak because otherwise they get put on an FBI watch list. But what they're doing is they're pulling their kids out of public school in droves. Just like how many people are leaving California,
Homeschool
they are
your
pulling their
kid.
children out of public schools and tossing them into private schools or homeschooling. It is happening. And this is what happens when PTA meetings fail, when the school board is just not feels tyrannical, and that they don't have to listen to the people who it's their job to make sure they're appeasing.
You know, the taxpayers.
The taxpayers who give the money, that is when the system is failing, and people are responding. They're pulling their kids out of school. And that's what's happening. And so it's good to see that's what's happening. And schools are starting to complain. They're like, Jesus, we don't have kids because a lot of their funding comes from attendance.
Yep.
We are not getting enough money because there's not enough students in the school.
Good. I hope
Jesus.
they fail.
Oh my
I hope
God.
public
This is
education
terrible.
fails. Fuck you. Another point.
I personally, I really have to disagree. I don't want it to fail. I know that it would. The reasoning why what you're saying that, like, I understand it. It's just public education is a need.
It is.
a
It is
huge
a modern day necessity.
If we take that away, think about it. Oh my God. I mean, what, 1960s, 1970s, we had a bunch of people that were actually smart enough to invent stuff. Majority of the things being invented around the world aren't coming from our country that much anymore.
I mean, it's not happening right now, and we have public education now.
The biggest thing
Right.
It's
that I would say,
already become not worth.
Just imagine
yeah.
taking that away, and all the people that can't afford
You
to
know
go
how
to.
mu- no,
any-
I think taking it away, like again, it's a drastic step. It's not going to happen, but if it did, pie in the sky. I mean, we're not the leading innovators in anything anymore except
Exactly.
pornography. So like,
the biggest thing, honestly,
Hollywood.
I agree. Actually, I don't think that the public school system should be completely eradicated. I think all of the people in those on the school board should just be fired outright, and
that
entirely
would
new
also
people
be
replaced.
acceptable.
There has to be reform.
There
because
needs to be
if
reform.
we're going to keep targeting the youth and the new generations that are going to come, that are going to lead our country, that are going to take control of our world when we're gone. You need to there's a reasonable doubt to understanding what we're doing with our kids.
Mm-hmm.
They are learning. They have no understanding of the real world yet. The only thing that they're exposed to is school. Exposed to
I
this
promise
world.
you, homeschooling would do them much better.
But
Not
no,
everyone
hold
can
on.
afford that. Not everyone has the chance to do
Homeschooling.
it.
Homeschooling. How do you build the standards for homeschool?
You don't.
Exactly.
They already
That's
do.
the point.
No, it's going to be
You don't.
strictly.
You should, I know what you're saying.
They
but,
already-
like,
they already
there
have a
doesn't need
standard.
to be curriculum for that. It's like the best part about it is
No.
it's patchwork.
No.
Yeah.
But here's the
No,
problem
no,
with
there
that.
needs to be a standard.
There has to be a standard that is generalized for everyone, because if you just do, say if you did homeschool for everybody, that is going to be a personal belief system based off who's teaching. And
Also going to be dependent on the culture in the area. What
Exactly.
need-
Exactly what you just said,
What
yeah.
need would Cornett have needed to have any sort of education on industrialized fishing in Washington State?
Is
that
that
necessary?
being taught?
100%.
Is that
it
part
should
of the
be.
core
No.
curriculum
But
of homeschooling?
what I'm asking is, like,
So
think
give us
about
a real
the vastness of the
no.
empire.
Give us a real example of something that is not necessary
Probably
In school systems?
sexual bullshit.
Yeah.
like this.
Okay. So that's what I'm saying.
One thing.
I think homeschooling provides a great filter as the parent, acting as the medium between which that child gains knowledge, and allows you. Of course, there's the argument of people who just completely isolate information and say, "Oh well, I don't believe that the Earth is round, so I'm not going to teach that part."
And that is one of the things that we need to understand is that people will take advantage of it, no matter which way it is.
If we're gonna err on the side of people taking advantage of children,
We're already there.
we're already there.
Definitely got there.
And the second thing is, I'd rather it be like the parents' choice than the PTA.
Right, but it should. But the thing is, okay, so
Like we're trading one vice for another, and I would prefer the vice on the other side of where we're not.
I totally get what you're saying.
You make your point, then I'm going to make a point.
No, go ahead.
So, you know
Talking to the
what
microphone.
what I did before I joined the army, right?
Yeah.
You've shown interest in it, and I've shown interest teaching
Talking a
you it.
little more.
Yeah.
There you go.
Without the public school, because
Welder.
my parents don't know how to do what I know. For example, manual lathe operations. They don't know how to fucking do that. Without the public school I went to, I would have never found the job I love to do.
Here's something cool. My public school never gave me that option.
You know why?
Why?
Because it wasn't needed in the area.
Yeah, industry.
Where I live, industry is a big fucking
If
deal.
you live in a local area, for example, like let's take they're not going to have marine-based engineering in Oklahoma. That's just not going to be a thing. Like they're not going to have marine diesel technician class in Oklahoma, which is landlocked. It's just not going to happen. So yeah, is welding really big in Colorado? I mean, it's arguably big across the United States, but it's mostly in
I wouldn't
manufacturing
know
centers like
for sure,
Texas.
to be honest.
There'd be like probably agriculture
There's
in Colorado.
There's definitely a lot of energy industry
Oh,
in
yeah, for
Colorado,
sure.
but I don't know if welding is a part of
Right,
it.
exactly.
It is.
So yes, there is the basis, and of course, this is by design. We must curtail local children, of course, not for your sexual deviance,
No.
but for the pre-existing industry. And we had this discussion a while back on the podcast where we need to do away with public school systems.
Like if it would
And-
make you more comfortable with this pie in the sky situation, why not just have, instead of a PTA, how about a local assembly of industry leaders in your local area? Or like, hey, you know what would be really useful for a homeschool curriculum in this area? And then them and the parents all decide that's reasonable. That would be probably better than the PTA right now.
We are going to go ahead and dive into our first break here, folks. Catch us back when we discuss how the military handled the COVID-19 vaccine.
So far,
Hayes, go and take it away, buddy.
So, as people might, know, we talk about the COVID thing when it like pops back into the news when it matters. Not like what's the new variant? Not that, but like things that matter, and especially like in case in point with like law and like people's careers, that sort of thing really matters. And right now, if you haven't heard about it, it's a little weird because like this has been the level of irony that is in this story is just, it's so powerful. Even non-military news sources have covered this because it is just odd. There's a Coast Guard rescue swimmer who just
Have the
he
details.
had a phone call with the president of the United States, right? And the president is there to say, hey,
I have the actual story.
okay,
Yeah,
because like
I put that in my notes.
essentially like because I have something I want to talk about beyond the
you
story.
Can go after I give you the story.
Go
So
ahead,
the background
yeah.
for this guy. So Coast Guard hero, aviation survival technician, second class, Zach Loesch. He was praised by the president, as Hayes just said. Actually called by the president himself to thank him after he kicked down a wall to save a wheelchair-bound woman and her husband. Biden also said that his team also saved a 1-month-old baby. He faces discharge for not getting the COVID-19 vaccine while he has a pending medical or pending religious exemption.
So something to note about this man is, again, he is a he is a rescue swimmer.
Yeah, for the Coast Guard.
So generally, like, I'm not a combat swimmer, I'm not in aviation, but I know a tiny bit about this. Essentially, this man goes in a helicopter and will go into the ocean, open ocean, or anywhere that's flooded, right? So this is an uncontrolled water environment, like this is like not safe, and he's there to get other people into the helicopter. Right. So like, they have baskets, they have cables, they have other shit. There's lots of tools to get people into the helicopter, but all of it is very like dangerous. Like, have you seen videos of people like dragging a would-be rescuer into the water and drowning them?
He is the guy.
He's the guy that you might drown because you're freaking out.
He's the guy
It's
that
not
has to go down there
Yeah.
to secure people
It's a
into
very
the basket.
it's a technical job, and to that end, like the school, I don't know what it's called. I'll never know. I'm not there, but
Not a coastie.
I'm not a puddle pirate. But here's the thing.
Mad respect to those guys.
As I've read into it, it's something around 70% attrition rate in that particular school. To that end, the entire Coast Guard, like force wide, is somewhere around almost like 2/3 under strength for not combat swimmers, rescue.
Survival swimmers.
Yeah. So that's just another thing we can bring up when I get to the other part of the topic I want to talk about.
Yeah.
But the point here is this man is basically special forces of rescue. Think of it that way, right? This is not an easy thing to do. These are extremely
They're badass.
professional people, right? Yes, you could probably attest then, right? They are very committed and very motivated.
Oh, 100%.
Right? They don't do this because they're paid well. They do it because they really, really want to. Right? And the president is like, wow, that is impressive. That this is something that my staff and aides have showed me, and is like, okay, yeah, I'll give him a phone call. It's like a challenge coin, but like not as physically real. So it's a similar thing to a challenge coin. And
I felt that.
I was like, where is that coming from?
I've done that so many fucking
my
times.
God.
It's not even funny.
So basically, man gets a phone call from the president. Congrats, good job, boy. And meanwhile, the department that man runs is gonna kick this boy out for a denial.
Man, this guy's a man.
You know what I'm saying? Good old.
We don't
boy.
have a fucking 12-year-old diving into the fucking ocean.
He's a fucking
At this rate,
man.
that's what we're gonna have to get. We're gonna have to ask 12-year-olds to do life-saving.
My question is, if a 12-year-old fucking did that, he's a man.
So
But is he vaccinated? Is he vaccinated?
let me put into a perspective of what these guys actually do, based off just personal experience with some of them that I've met from different organizations, especially independent contractors that work with the United States government in different areas of the world. They would have a team, and when there's special operations, and these guys are the rescue teams, they have them from from sea to land, everywhere. Like they're literally everywhere. And these guys are, they're professionals, they're devoted. When you meet them, they're really genuine people. These guys really understand what they're doing, why they're doing it. And you would always, every single time I ask them, I mean, you'll have a guy head of their team. He always tells me, he's like, I love doing my job because all that we do is actually save people. That is our job. And we go into diverse environments that you'll never understand. Most people will ever actually know.
Difficult to articulate to somebody.
Exactly. And they will go in the middle of nowhere, and these guys they're special operations and they're operators, and they really good at what they do. Let's just say that. You can't tell if these guys are killers or not, because they definitely can be. But they will show up in the middle of nowhere, middle of the night. You'll never know they're there, and the people they're saving, you'll never know. Immediately disappear. These guys are really good at what they do, and the coolest thing is they'll go in the middle of a war zone. They'll go in the middle of some crazy place that people probably have never been to or will ever understand.
I mean, keep in mind, like, Coast Guard's also the organization that does badass shit off the coast of Florida
People
all the
don't
time.
understand the Coast Guard also deploys overseas.
They also like intercept narco subs
Exactly.
with guns, and like, who knows what's in the tube?
Now,
Who knows?
If you really think about the Coast Guard, where is probably the most crazy areas the Coast Guard probably would have to go to?
Likely, have to go to
Coast of Mexico, guaranteed.
cartel, maybe.
So we're thinking more, more broaden. If you want to think about the Coast Guard, think about Mexico, and also think about the Gulf of Mexico and all the different bordering countries down south that we also have to deal with.
I imagine Florida and the Gulf are
Florida
probably the
is
most.
one of the biggest ones that they have to deal with. Now you're talking about, if we want to relate to these kind of operations, especially with those bordering coasts and the Gulf of Mexico and all the different there. We do have cartels. They do have criminal organizations there that act just like terrorist organizations in other countries that we're at war with. That we were. Let me take that back.
And
That
likely,
we were.
and
at
likely
war.
have no problem
because we
shooting
pulled
at
out,
Coast
right?
Guard.
We often forget that the terrorists won the war on terror.
I mean, did they win?
They did. They
mean, they're still. I
They
mean,
have their own
what happened with
country now.
Afghanistan? I mean, they went back in and started asking.
They've got their
for
own
help.
country.
Let's stop going down that road.
Okay, we can dive into that. It was never about a war on terror. That's a hot take.
Mission accomplished.
But back to the point. These guys go in. They're great at what they do, and all that they do is go into areas that other people can't go into. And yes, they fight, but they're also
It's just
there
selfless
to-
service.
Yes, and they're choosing to do this. I mean, majority of them, if they're independent contractors, probably do get paid pretty well.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie.
But-
But one of the guys, I was saying, the program manager, he was like, yeah, no, I'm getting paid a lot of money to be able to do this because I'm one of the only people that can and choose to.
But this Coastie, he ain't one of them. He's doing it because he wants to, and it's not the pay.
Oh, you didn't get the vaccine.
You're just
Now,
not.
see, here,
You're not clean enough.
it's crazy because the policy, right, the latent policy that just got posted for the U.S. Department of I mean, there's so many different guidelines right now with just how military from back when 2020, where we were going to be the main structure of importation to other countries of the vaccinations that we have in the United States. They were trying to feel that the military was going to be the way that we were going to transporting all the vaccinations that we have to other countries. Literally, it was stated back in 2020 on an article on why we wanted to do it should be by the military. Interesting, right?
We
Yeah.
reviewed
Yeah.
on the podcast the shady FDA papers with Pfizer, BioNTech from Germany, which is now called Comirnaty for various reasons. But any hoozle.
Yo.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's
what are the chaplains saying about this?
So, all right. So for people that don't know, the skinny of it is the Department of the Navy, the Department of the Air Force, and the Department of the I think it's a DHS thing. So the Coast Guard itself, they all have had either a or a couple officers or a couple enlisted personnel individually sue the government and their specifically their departments over basically how everyone has been denied a religious
Exemption.
exemption to the vaccine.
Yeah.
Guys, are you aware a DoD official, us, can't sue the military?
No, you can. You can. You really can. So yes, you can. You can file a criminal complaint.
So I'm friends with our paralegal.
Your paralegal.
Our
Yeah,
paralegal.
yeah. Guess what? She's
Our-
wrong. She's literally retarded.
Hayes, you're fucking stupid.
So listen,
Fix yourself.
I can show you the actual criminal complaint, and you can read the whole thing.
I don't care if someone filed a criminal complaint.
That's
That's
how
a
lawsuit-
complaint.
That's how a lawsuit works.
That's a complaint.
Okay, mute
that's
his
not
channel. Mute his channel right now.
At my channel, I didn't know I owned this. All right, back to
No, like
Cornet.
your audio channel.
I'm gonna shut up now.
So listen.
I found my place, Hayes. I understand. I'm a bitch. I got it.
So listen, right? These individuals have sent the federal government a criminal complaint against their department, and in each of those cases, the Navy, the Air Force, and the Coast Guard, the federal government, the judges that reviewed the case, the complaint, say, yeah, this will go to trial, and in that time, that individual in the suit is now no longer subject to punishments or any other adverse action to their career or to their finances or anything else. Soon after, like give it like a month or two in all three of these cases, it was then decided by the judge that, hey, yeah, I'm going to grant not only that injunction against those departments, but I will also expand the suit of the case or the case of the suit to be a class action. So all members in the Air Force, like enlisted and commissioned alike, and the Navy and the Coast Guard, per those separate lawsuits,
Organizations.
are allowed the same protection by that injunction.
But not the army.
So the army is just
Not so. That's
not.
the thing. There's about 2.5 weeks ago, 42 different army chaplains finally had their suit heard by a federal judge, and he's about like a couple days away from making his decision on to whether this is a legitimate complaint and can become a suit or not. And basically, it's looking very strong. And if that happens, give it another month or two, the Army will probably also have a similar class action that can be brought to bear. So then every other enlisted and commissioned soldier would be allowed those protections until
So-
that case is finalized.
So I mean, obviously, you in particular with your case, you're looking forward to this going through, right?
Well, okay, so yes and no. I would really prefer if the government would come back tomorrow or on Tuesday and say, hey, we looked at your, because they already denied. I mean, this is kind of like personal matters, but my initial request for an exemption was denied outright. But the problem was they did not explain why, which is illegal. The government has a obligation and duty to not only prove to me that the method of fulfilling the government's compelling interests are the least invasive to my obligations and needs, but also that it is a compelling interest in the first place. So, and so that's verbatim to the 1992 Restoration of Freedom Religious Act. So when I read through their response to my appeal, or sorry, to my initial request, they just didn't mention any of that shit. And so I told them in my appeal that I would be planning on suing the Army, the Department of the Army, if they kicked me out and didn't provide any information to that end. And I kind of hope that they do that, because I would really like to find. There's no end in this country, thankfully, for religious law firms that are like, yeah, no, that's a clear criminal violation of the law, and we'll do this pro bono. I would love to be the thorn in the side of the government, because this shit is just unethical.
We know.
I believe it.
So instead of taking the obvious moment to say something that you need to timestamp again, I'm not going to do that.
No, now it's fine.
Now it's fine.
Yeah.
So basically, no, it came directly from, in fact, the Department of Defense, not even the Department of the Army. So like it went higher, way higher. Okay. So this time my appeal will go to the SecDef's office. It'll go higher than the health secretary.
What? Explain to me, SecDef office?
The Secretary of Defense.
Okay.
As opposed to one of his lower levels.
Really didn't know what that meant.
Why don't you stay over there?
Wow.
Okay.
You really
That
didn't
man's
know
bigger
that's-
than you.
That
That man's
meant?
bigger than you.
Okay, so he used to be bigger than me.
Wow.
He is bigger than you.
Muscle-wise, yeah. But
Okay.
Wait,
Anywho,
what?
What?
so
Why are you talking about my muscles?
okay. So good.
Are you?
Are you?
No. I want
Okay.
to sue the government.
All right. In other news,
he's
I don't
just
think that's gonna help your
intentionally-
case, bro.
He just intentionally wants this problem. He's just like, I want this.
Yeah,
I
because
wanna-
I've
Hey,
become
put
petty.
that
They've
in a
made
timestamp so
the
they
government's
find
made
it.
me petty as hell.
I believe it. But you were petty beforehand too.
I was,
Oh, yeah.
but they've only encouraged it.
They enticed it.
They didn't encourage it.
You wanted it.
in
They've
other news,
antagonized it.
Gavin Newsom, without fail, is blaming greedy corporations for the high gas prices in California. Listen to this clip.
I can't hear anything.
All the environmental related costs in California, it doesn't equate to the $2.50 that they're gouging us on. We're currently, as we speak today, $2.50 more than the national average. There's nothing to justify, nothing, not one thing, to justify $2.50 increase.
Nothing, you say,
Nothing.
Gavin? Nothing. So let's just go ahead and just describe to you. We already talked about this in the earlier part of the podcast. The policies that are in effect in California. No, you can blame OPEC. That's reasonable. You can blame OPEC. This organization.
No, we
where-
can't dare criticize our allies in the Middle East.
For those in the audience that don't know what OPEC is, this fucking shadow organization. OPEC is an organization, a committee really, that is comprised of countries that hold about 90% of the world's oil. Okay? Wait, hold on. Weren't we energy independent during Trump's presidency? Yes, we were, and we can still be. But in our current administration, we are being made to be beholden to these people and these countries, because now instead of getting 30% of our oil from Russia, now we're getting it from Saudi Arabia and Venezuela. Really good places, by the way. So Gavin Newsom there saying that there's no reason for the $2.50 increase. No, there is. And all of your policy, Gavin, all of your policy, Mr. Newsom, is the reason why gas is so expensive in California.
Part of it is Biden, too.
Look at other blue states, right? New Jersey, it's $3 over there. It's $3 over there. But it's upwards of $6 in California as the
Holy
average in the
shit.
state right now.
That's crazy.
$6 a gallon. Why? Because California charges gas stations and oil producers for everything. Underground tank storage. Yep. Every single green energy renewable deal, basically just a tax because it emits CO2, is a thing that is taxed in California.
So when are they going to start taxing us for breathing out carbon dioxide?
It's inevitable soon. So just based off of the virtue of it producing carbon dioxide, they have a tax for that because they are being green. It's a green policy. Basically, whenever you hear green policy, immediately assume that it is just basically they're taking money from you and doing nothing about climate change. That's what they're doing because they've had this policy for decades and it's done nothing. There's no change. In fact, the United States is the greenest country in the world.
Wait, hold up. Are you sure?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Really?
We have the
North America
We
and
have-
Western Europe are so
It-
fucking clean compared to the rest of the world.
in the first
It-
world countries, the United States is the lead,
I love you.
is the least CO2 emitting country in the world. China makes up for that. Do
So I
In spades.
I know China, but I've always
you know why? Because the government pushed these policies, which said that you are going to avoid these tax things or sanctions or whatever. You need to make your industry more green, and in the regard of
or
like
there will be like
oil
monetary
coal
punishments.
oil plants that are used to make energy have to have sophisticated technology in their exhaust systems to scrub out majority of the impurities inside their exhaust. And that is the reason why we are a leader of the green energy idea, right? We scrub out most of our CO2 emissions from our emissions.
So-
However, there's this thing called the Paris Accord or the French, whatever the fuck. It's basically this agreement which Trump pulled us out of, which basically said a bunch of countries got together and were like, hey, we're going to have all these policies with industry and stuff to fight climate change and fight global warming or whatever, right? And the United States was the only fucking people that did it, just like NATO, right? We are the only nation that pays their fair share and more into NATO. And we were the only people that did our job and our agreement with that Paris Accord. Trump was like, nah, this is horseshit. You guys aren't doing anything. And I'm sure there's some like money thing that is involved in it where we have to give money to people like we always do. And he said, no, none of that. And, here we are back in it. But the California is a very, very, very interesting case because they so heavily tax gas. That's the reason why it's so expensive in California.
Yeah, the
Exclusively.
tax rate's insane.
Nowhere else is
What's
it $6. Let's look it up. Let's look at the highest tax rate. Somebody pull it up. Look at the highest
I got you.
highest gas prices in the United States right now by state. Because the highest gas prices by average. And I guarantee you that over 90% of those will be Democratic states. Without fail. Because it is Democratic policy that is causing the way of life and what we're living in right now.
I'm curious now. I want to see how bad it is back home.
so you're saying
Like,
It's just kind of weak. I think that one.
All right.
reminds me of me sometimes.
you can just hold it if you
This
want.
is a whole map. All right, cool. Price for a gallon
fuck it.
of regular gas.
Yeah, so let's say what California is right now.
Six,
And what's it up
There
here?
it is.
What's it up here?
Washington State,
540.
540.
What's it
Okay.
in Colorado? The square in the middle of the country.
3.
Yo!
Hold on. I just noticed something that I call bullshit on.
And what's the
that.
cheapest?
Look at
Texas.
Texas.
I was about to say I call bullshit on that.
So now, of course, there are things that go largely into gas prices. Okay, it's about regionality. It's about transportation. States that have the production facilities for gasoline obviously are going to have the cheapest prices of gas. Right?
Okay, now it makes sense.
Texas
Yeah.
has a fuck ton of oil refineries. Okay,
Yeah.
that is why you see lower gas prices in
That
Texas.
shit pays
all
so
right?
well too.
Yeah, it is very nice in Texas because of that reason. They have the local industry there that allows them to have such low gas prices. You go over to California, $6, logistically speaking, there's nothing that justifies that amount of money.
Have you ever worked on a rig? I assume not.
No, I passed by them.
Damn, he fucking stinted on you, bro.
So when you work on a rig, there's
You're not blue collar.
there's
Fuck
a method
you.
that happens where I'm sure y'all probably know more about the market than me. Where when the price is high, you send your stock. When the price is low, you hold it back. Is the basic knowledge that I
Yeah.
have. In oil rigging, that's not what happens. The oil riggers who own the oil rig aren't allowed to hold that because it's considered a national product.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to hold
It's
it.
considered a commodity. What is the other word for a commodity that is like? I'd say commodity. It's something that is necessary for something that is deemed as necessary for American way of life.
And
Something that you cannot withhold.
most people think we're pulling some amount of fossil fuels out of the floor. When I worked on that rig, we were throwing hundreds of thousands of oil barrels off of that site daily.
Yeah. This is another thing too.
People just don't get how much like petroleum is used in everything.
Can you guys believe that Oregon is the second highest?
Yeah, I can believe.
Yeah,
that.
I can believe that.
Yeah,
for
that
sure.
Then
doesn't-
Alaska. Then it goes to Nevada. And then it's Washington.
Alaska makes sense
A lot
because
of
I guarantee you there's not as many oil rigs in Alaska, because current administrative policy is to limit the amount of oil production facilities in the United States, to stop off-coast drilling and offshore oil drilling. Whereas in the Trump era, we were allowed to do all that, and America was the leading exporter of oil and gas, oil products in the world. And what was the consequence of that? Low gas prices, record low gas prices. If we have a surplus, this is basic supply and demand. When we have more of shit that we need,
It's cheaper.
we sell it, and it's cheaper for us overall. When we purposefully constrict the supply
Diamonds.
and outsource it to other countries like Saudi Arabia and Venezuela, who are, by the way, not very good to their people, we end up in the shithole we are in now, where California is paying $6. And yeah, that can be also attributed to the current economic policy from the administration, but it is also a lot to do with California policy. All of those green energy deals are a bunch of bullshit. That way local governments can get their large chunk of the pie. And I think I saw articles, a bunch of articles quantify this number differently. It depends on who you look at, but when it comes to a gas station gets maybe 5% profit. They get 5% of that dollar amount that you see on the pump in profit per gallon. And the rest of that is going to all the fees and licensing and taxes that the local legislation put on it. Okay. It is not due to greedy corporations. Never, ever, ever, ever believe a politician when they say shit's expensive because of a greedy corporation. No, interestingly enough, they themselves are a corporation in a way. It goes down to, political dynasties and such like that, where Gavin Newsom has been the governor. Likely, I mean, of course, you had Arnold Schwarzenegger as governor way back when, but I'm pretty sure Gavin Newsom's been governor ever since I've been alive. So that's 23 years. So do not be fooled for a second, folks. Okay. Gas is not expensive because greedy corporations. You know why? It's super easy because people who don't want to take the time and just dissect this a little bit, i.e. the vast majority of Americans, don't see this shit. And they just go, oh yeah, the nightmare box, the nightmare square on my wall says I need to be angry at corporations. Therefore, I'm going to be angry at corporations. And they do. And that's why.
there are legitimate reasons to not like corporate power, but this isn't one of them.
Yeah.
I just thought of a really good slogan for, the Terminator coming back into, the seat for governor.
I want to hear this.
It'd be hilarious if he just seems like, hey, for all you guys that want to save, come with me if you want to save.
Come with me if you want to save
Oh
money.
God.
So
I could totally see that winning too.
you know what?
Yeah. Sadly.
America's
so
just a
OPEC,
fucking nightmare.
OPEC, remember this organization of
It's
multiple different
by
countries.
The way, it's defined as a cartel. It is,
Sure, yeah,
it is
I agree.
a oil
Yeah.
cartel.
So these countries that control 90% of the world's oil, and i.e. shipment of oil, agreed, literally out in the clear, agreed to withhold 2 million barrels of oil
What was the reason
from the
for
world
that?
economy.
It's really crazy. It's really crazy how you state like majority of the liberal states are having issues with gas a little more. Right. Looking at the statistics right now today. I mean, if you look at it, the highest prices in gas you'll find in Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, and Wisconsin. If you look at Texas, Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana, all the way down to Florida and Georgia, they're the lowest. And if you look at and I think everything from the West, if you look at all the way from California, Oregon, Washington, Nevada, Arizona, Utah, Idaho, and Montana, all are $4 and more. Everything else besides, the Great Lake areas, they're all cheap. They're all $3. And it's insane because a year ago, that was the normal price.
Yeah.
Countrywide.
Yeah.
I remember that because in
remember
Washington,
when gas was a nickel.
So hang on, let me go ahead and go a step further. I want to be as transparent as possible. Okay, obviously I have some biases, but I am correct. I have just been shown correct, right? So this is the thing. Okay, so yes, everyone is gonna be like, well, Texas and all those states around Texas have the benefit of
Let me hop the border and get cheaper gas.
cheaper transportation costs, right? Because we have to either ship gasoline via rail or by truck. Okay. Now if we can imagine, right, for a second, large bulk to supply regional locations is done via train. Okay. You can haul the most shit with a train. So let's say all the oil refineries in Texas and that local southern region, they're going to get all that gas on a train and they're going to ship it over to the Northwest. Okay. It's going to get at the depot or the local supply station in the Pacific Northwest, and it's going to go, or the West, because there's also rail yards, very well known, Southern California railroads. Everyone knows fucking Amtrak. Everyone knows those people. Everyone knows Santa Fe. Everyone knows those guys from California. See them all the fucking time, okay? From those rail yard supply chains, the depots, okay, it goes on to semis, okay? And those go out to your local gas stations and shit like that, okay? Democrats cannot justify, because we can all agree, okay? Imagine it's a snowballing effect, okay? If gas prices are high, okay, it's going to cost the semi truck drivers more to fuel their truck to begin with, to then take the gas over to the fucking gas stations, okay? We know that. It's an exponential problem, okay? But the Democratic cities cannot, especially in fucking Illinois, they cannot justify that transportation costs are accounting for their massive increase in gas prices.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, Kentucky's bordered with them. They're at $3.51. They're almost a whole dollar lower than Illinois. It's insane. And then
We were wrong, by the way.
What?
Georgia has the cheapest gas.
Yeah, it's Georgia.
Yeah.
Right now. But it's insane because they can't argue this unless there's a there's a tax between states. Like, it literally doesn't make any sense.
The sale of gas at the gas pump is controlled by local state legislation. And that is why every Democratic state, which we just shown on this map, is more expensive. It has nothing to do with greedy corporations. It has nothing to do with logistical costs. No, it is because of their shitty government policy that is creating this large inflation of gas prices. And you know what? They're going to use...
Hold on. Now to make this credible, so listeners can actually look at this map and make sure that if you guys want to be biased to it or not, just find it at Forbes.com. Advisors, personal finance, gas/prices by state.
Forbes, which is a notable Democratic leading site.
Ironic, right?
Yeah.
Weird.
So when Democratic sites
love
or
calling it
sources
Forbies.
typically give you Forbies.
Forbies.
So
Sounds like
so
those fucking
that's
robots,
the interesting thing there. Okay, that's the interesting thing.
But
And on the same sort of vein about energy, because energy right now is a topic of discussion, the Nordstream Pipeline. Okay, the Nordstream Pipeline. Everyone is all over the news right now talking about the Nordstream Pipeline. This is a pipeline that put natural gas, I believe, or methane, basically, from Russia to Germany and a couple other countries. I don't know which.
So,
Didn't it get
ironically,
sabotaged?
what's the first country
Yes.
that they had to go through? One of the biggest countries they had to pay taxes to was Ukraine. Just put that in
Powerful.
there. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Guess who was the biggest taxing for that pipeline?
Russia.
Ukraine.
Mm.
And
Mm.
it was a big, hefty
Tells you what
interest.
I imagine because they had to put that pipeline through Ukraine in order to get to Germany.
Exactly.
It's actually kind
And
of crazy if you think of the scale of that thing, right? If you think of the scale that this pipe, which is huge in diameter,
oh, yeah.
is stretching from Russia to Germany. It's kind of crazy.
What I would have given to be the welder on that project.
But if you really
Kind of
think,
crazy.
if you think about it, and we actually do some more, if you take the time to really look into the price that Russia had to pay all these different outside countries and bordering countries that they had to cross through, like Ukraine, you'll find that that particular country was probably the biggest tax out of all of them. And how much money their listeners look into how much money Russia is saving just based off Ukraine not taxing it, because now they're at war. So obviously it's not happening. So really look into that, and you'll actually might find some interesting information on that point.
Here's the thing.
When-
Right?
oh,
it
go
was
ahead.
still transporting fuel. All the countries that say, "Oh, we're not going to buy Russian gas," but fucking always do because there's no one else that can give it to them, right? Do you think this helps the Russians or not? Because I'm going to tell you, it's not.
It's not going to help them.
The
It's
thing
actually
is,
a detriment.
No,
Now,
no,
now that
completely.
hello.
It's the
Okay.
It's just so keep going.
It's not helping them. This is bad for them, right?
100%.
So whenever you see people on Twitter say dumb shit like, "See, the Russians sabotaged this part of the pipeline," they're forgetting that, like, no, this is like definitely within America's playbook. We do stuff like this all the time to people that we hate much more than the Russians. Just like here's the thing. If it doesn't make sense, we're the ones that did it, right? Because here's the narrative that I always run with. Like, you remember when there were sarin gas attacks in Syria during the Civil War, right? Would it make sense for you, if you were the dictator of a country and you just took back a city like Aleppo, would it make sense for you to just gas the city you just captured? Does that make sense to you? Would you do that?
I mean, theoretically, no.
No, not at all.
But-
Right? But the narrative in the West was, oh, see, Assad is a gas-killing animal. He's just crazy.
Here's the
right?
crazy part
But
about
here's the thing.
that concept.
Who benefited from that? If he really did do that, does he benefit?
not at
No,
all.
right? But you know who did benefit if he did do that? America, who wanted to get involved.
But now let's go back to the idea on who actually did gassing outside of the two parties you're talking about. That was also deeply involved with that country.
So I want to briefly talk about,
Which
because a lot of the
is-
speculation right now.
So we're talking about the gassing in Syria, right?
Yeah.
So what was one country that truly
No, go ahead,
go.
went into war with Syria? It was
Mhm.
their borderlining country, right?
Sure, the
north,
Russians.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Does it make sense for the Russians to let the Americans get in, even a small foothold? No, of course not.
right, but one thing that we've noticed about Russia is they hate when people start to turn against them when they work with them.
We are the exact same.
Oh, we are. But you got to remember, we're the good guys.
We're the good guys. Yeah.
in our eyes.
Right.
But-
Okay, let's take a moment here. I want to. A lot of the thing that's being discussed right now is, as you can imagine, who done it, who sabotaged the Nordstream pipeline. Okay, now this is interesting because I have a clip here. Okay, this is Biden addressing the state of the Nordstream pipeline.
Act of sabotage, and now the Russians are pumping out disinformation and lies. We work with our allies to get to the bottom of precisely what happened. And as at my direction, I've already begun to help our allies enhance the protection of this critical infrastructure.
So there he is discussing that it is indeed an act of sabotage, and here is a address 8 months ago about what the United States would do if Russia invaded Ukraine.
Germany maybe to not support SWIFT measures?
Germany, if Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing Ukraine again. Then Nordstream.
So there you had the President of the United States 8 months ago saying that if Russia were to invade Ukraine, he would put an end to the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Okay. Lo and behold, here we are, where the Nord Stream 2 pipeline was sabotaged. Okay. And of course, now we hear in that previous clip I had, it was Biden saying that, we don't know who did it. We're going to do an investigation. Oh, Russia's putting out misinformation and propaganda. When they put out their own and said,
Has he ever studied war in history?
Did you hear the man talk?
So this is the thing, okay? So personally,
He obviously has.
hey, personally, if it's true that the United States did it, good on
Yeah.
us. Good on us. Good on us. Because what's the biggest problem? We don't want people going back to Russia for energy independence. We don't want to give them any more money than they already get, okay? That's the whole
I
point.
mean, it's been a financial war ever since the thing
So
started.
where are they gonna get their gas from, right?
Germany? Well, they already are starting their more infrastructure. They're starting to build
Yeah,
up their
I'm talking
infrastructure about oil
right
production.
now. Where's the oil gonna come from?
Didn't they already start like
Their
6 months ago?
own people.
So you
Their
got to
own
remember,
industries.
60%.
Where is it? They
What's from
can't.
Russia?
There's no oil in Germany. You can't pull it out of the ground there. Where are they getting it?
They are starting their
What
own
markets
countries.
are they buying it from?
United States, Saudi Arabia,
We're
Venezuela.
not. You already went on a whole tirade. How we're
Qatar.
not doing it no more. So where are they getting it from?
I just answered your question. Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, Middle East.
And you also went on a bit ago about how they're holding their product from the market.
Right. It's just to make it more expensive. The major point, I'm not saying it's good, but it's better than giving more money to Russia. And you have your proclivities as to why that's bad because, you know, want to suck Putin's dick. No comment? That's interesting.
You know what? You know what? Fuck you.
You know what?
Silence is a
I
medicine.
don't care if you broke your elbow.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is good.
I
If
think
the United
Putin
States
wrestles bears, okay?
You
if
would
the United
rather,
States did this, of course they would never admit to it because, truth be told, they are
And epic
damning a
rap
bunch of
battles he
people
did.
out of energy.
Yeah,
Right? It's
like,
true.
It's not fucking ethical.
Right? It's not ethical, but it's
everyone
war,
wants to talk about how
is war
God, you know, the invasion in Ukraine.
Is
blah,
war
blah, blah.
usually ethical?
And then it's like, no. And we've been over this, you know.
Right.
The
So-
genocide
world
is
history has
unethical.
been far
So-
more violent than modern man could ever conceive of. But like, you can't say
Am
on
I
one
s-
hand, oh, the war is extremely unethical, it's killing people
am I
needlessly.
am I
and
saying
then just
is it
say,
right?
fuck your heating. You can just die in the cold.
Which is weird because most of their heating and stuff is based off of electrical power. That's
But
cool.
yeah, but where's
Um,
you still need to burn shit.
Right, for gas.
Natural gas.
Of course, that's pretty much it for like
Yeah.
Germany. So, okay. The is it right? No. Is it wrong? No. There's pros and cons to every action that every government takes. There's going to be someone who is going to be taking the brunt of it. Germany, in this case, is going to take the brunt of it, and
Would
as
you-
well as
would
any other
you
countries that's
not
usually
yeah, not
say
just
it's
Germany.
hypocritical.
Yes, not just Germany.
You would
Is
say it's hypocritical.
Is it hypocritical?
The UK
Yeah.
In
For
what
the-
regard?
in the
60% comes from
in the
Russia.
sense of the United States, right? Oh, it's bad that Russia does this, but then we do something that will also condemn people, right? This is hypocritical.
No.
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 Why not?
Because we are not outright going into a country that we think is ours and
No,
destroying shit.
That's
No,
stupid.
no. So the
That's
thing that
stupid.
the thing that truly is unethical, honestly, that I truly personally believe, based off a moral standpoint, I think, not a completely politically correct or anything like that. It's just because when you see the outcome, to me, I can fuck the goddamn oil, fuck all the politics with it. The only thing I'm giving a shit about what the outcome of it is when Ukraine takes back their cities and you see all those piles of bodies and all the different people that actually got affected by it that had no really intentions in any of this.
That's
Do you
just
know
the
what
course of
do
history.
you know what the
It is the course of history.
It's what happened. It's going to happen to us too.
Right, but
You know what?
it's avoidable.
what's even funnier?
It's not.
You know what's
It
even
could've been.
funnier, guys? You're gonna love this.
Okay, maybe.
What
You know what I
uh
mean? It could have been.
what,
Maybe a-
what administration is so heavily against like is for global warming and is like trying to stop it? Our current one. And you know who, if they did indeed do it, just released a record amount of methane into the
That's what I'm-
atmosphere.
Yeah, again,
It's hilarious.
It's more hypocrisy.
It's just
That's the
exactly.
point.
It's not that
It's
consistency
funny.
matters
It's
to these
funny.
people.
It
'cause
doesn't
we've talked
matter.
about this. It's
It
just
doesn't
about-
matter.
It just
It's-
is about power.
It's a
But-
means to an end, really. That's the funny part. That's the anyway. Moving on to the obsession with Jeffrey Dahmer.
Okay. So we
I don't know.
officially
anything
moving
about
on. All right, let's do this. Okay.
this. What's this all?
I'd like to point out that Cody is the only person that has ever brought a laptop to the show, and it's honestly
'Cause he is actually serious
extremely
and-
fucking professional.
Yeah.
It's helpful. Like
It's
we can
honestly,
actually take a look at
dude, you're so fucking fast. You just like pull shit up, and I'm like,
Well-
I'm struggling to find my phone in my pocket.
with
You already
the
got shit
with
up.
the time that we had since you woke up like
Kill yourself.
afternoon, we had a bunch of prep work that we were able to do.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I didn't have any information on this coming in. I was just like, okay. I looked at
Until-
the topics.
See,
and
Walker's
just
right.
pulled
I'm
some things
based.
up.
until now,
I'm based.
I was the only person ever to do actual research for the podcast.
That's bullshit.
Mm,
That's bullshit.
No, it's not.
Walker's the only one who doesn't.
I've done
don't.
research.
Shut up! I'm trying to
I
dab
don't
on
give.
Walker.
Hey, I don't give a fuck about your point.
Okay, here.
I'm gonna be mean.
All right, go ahead.
dab on
Hang on.
All right, okay. So first off, we're with the obsession of Jeffrey Dahmer. We gotta really dissect the idea on why people were so intrigued by him.
You have a thought, but I want to hear yours first.
I mean, mine. I'm just gonna be reading off some facts. I'm actually gonna call on my buddy Cornette over here. I want him to try to read this
All right, what's up? What's up? Which side? Left, right?
right here. I want you to read.
We read right to left in this
statement
country.
based off the Urban Dictionary.
Especially when we're drunk.
Don't look at me. Look at.
All right.
I want you to read that. Right?
Ideally into a microphone.
How do you say it? Say it into the microphone.
Thank you.
Read off what this. You can read this one. You know, either one.
I don't know how to say a lot of these words, so excuse me.
That's how it is here.
Hybrostophilia is a paraphilia in which sexual arousal, facilitation, and attainment of orgasm or responsive to and contingent upon being with a partner known to have committed an outrage, cheating, lying, known infidelities or crimes such as rape, murder, or armed robbery.
So that is just based off the Urban Dictionary. So really, it's just a way of defining a different psychosis that is literally the fans that you for some reason find Jeffrey Dahmer sexually arousing because of his acts that are taboos within society. And then that brings into another topic of what Jeffrey Dahmer was actually subject to. His psychosis was antisocial personality.
Personally, I think there's like a level of like don't get me wrong, this is unhealthy in the way that like it's currently being expressed, but I think this is like an echo from like how women used to be a very, 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 very long time ago, like this like ancient kind of shit, right?
Yeah.
Because like we all still have all of these habits, from our ancestors from long ago. We'll never really get rid of it, but like currently, what?
I don't have any of those.
That's bullshit. You're like the most primitive of all of us in this section.
I don't know about that.
Not in a bad
I'm pretty
way.
barbaric.
I
over
said
here.
that because it sounded funny, but like it's not even a bad thing. I think you're probably more in tune with like how real life really is than most people.
Okay, so sorry, y'all. Topic right now. Let's hold off to that. What the fuck do you mean?
Like okay, so like
No, there are far more primitive sexual behaviors within.
no,
the team.
degenerate sexual behaviors.
How is that not primitive? Can be ruled as primitive.
Well, or you'd be using the word primitive as like a derogatory word, and I wasn't.
I got one example.
What?
He's in my fucking team. He was my team chief while my team chief was Don.
Yeah.
Eating ass. Yeah,
Jesus,
I'm
okay.
tracking. I'm tracking.
Anyway, it's
but here it is.
the
here it is.
fascination with Jeffrey Dahmer
and other serial killers.
overall the
I
point.
think it comes from like a lot of women, like they like violence, like in the back of their lizard brain, right? It's like
So hold on. You keep saying women, but we also got to take in all the men.
homosexual.
Well,
That's my answer.
There are men.
I'm looking at you right now.
No, you truly like men will follow men who are
violent
because there was the whole in psychology there was a whole idea of alpha male, beta male kind of shit, and it's dubious at best
I'm a gamma
as
male.
to what kind of like actual efficacy that has in modern day world, but like in tribal senses of humanity, right? It was very notable that you would have at the top of your tribe, you would have the strongest men, and they would be the ruling class,
the most capable of doing
the
violence.
most capable people, because at the time, right? Remember, tribalism, protection and safety was
From other
very
tribes.
important from other tribes. Warring was very common,
Getting
and
resources.
so the ability to commit incredible acts of violence was sought after, and men, not having to be homosexuals, saw that as a good thing. I personally find that as a good thing. I don't want estrogen-filled men in the army, right? Because we need to have safety. We need to be able to fight, right? And so strong men are great for that. And that comes down to that. I think that's what you're saying is that it's a primitive
Echo
response
of the
and sort of
past.
desire that we must seek out that
Now,
physical
the
safety.
fact that women think Jeffrey Dahmer might be cool, or that some men are like, "Yo, dude, if Jeffrey Dahmer was out, we'd go kill people tomorrow."
No, I think it's
that's unhealthy.
I think it's more. It's not really in that vein because people were again deriving sexual pleasure from the things that
That's
Dahmer
definitely
did.
not healthy.
So this is the other
There's
thing.
a lot of
I
things
think
not healthy
that,
about the situation.
and for the folks that don't know, okay, I'm sure 90% of our audience has been seeing the Netflix docuseries of Dahmer. Okay, but this is still well-known knowledge for those that are privy to it, and it's not a spoiler. Get over it. It's been like decades.
It's been
It's been
the
fucking
criminal
decades,
act has
okay?
already expired.
But people, while Jeffrey Dahmer was in prison. Okay, by the way, hey, the actual docuseries is actually very well done. It is shot beautifully. It is a really good demonstration of good cinematography and filmmaking. Okay, let's just get that out there. What the docuseries also showed is that in prison, the behavior of his fans is very interesting. He received fan mail all the time from people who loved what he did, loved the idea of what he did. Women were sending pornographic images of themselves to a gay man in prison, which he then used as trading things amongst the prison mates.
That's kind of smart.
So they derived sexual pleasure from these things. And I believe what it mostly is them living vicariously through the man. I think that these are the other degenerates in society.
Is that how I'm gonna get married?
Who also
Is that the winning strategy here?
I think it's the other degenerates in society who also had those thoughts and inclinations.
Oh, and he was like their avatar.
but didn't have the actual willpower.
That's interesting.
The willpower or such a severe mental issue as Dahmer did.
They
and
live
because just
vicariously
shortly
through it.
yeah, they live it was a vicarious
That honestly
act.
is a bit more troubling, isn't it?
Because you also had the same thing with, and it was interesting because I wanted to discuss mostly the difference between Dahmer and Casey, who is basically other serial killer who was killed supposedly the same day that he was beaten in prison by another inmate. Because John Wayne Casey was another serial killer who I believe dressed up like a clown when he was torturing and murdering people. And for him, it's interesting because if I'm going based off of the docuseries, John Wayne Casey didn't necessarily receive sexual satisfaction from his acts. It was purely just for the ability of control, which is the issue with most serial killers. It's all about control. With Dahmer, it was control from severe abandonment issues, from being gay and having sexual arousal from this shit, like severe BDSM shit, basically. And so it was they both did the same thing, but didn't. They both killed people, but the reasons for such things are slightly different, right? Ultimately, with most serial killers, it's about control. And both John Wayne Casey and Jeffrey Dahmer both shared those things, right? John Wayne Casey was a very religious man who basically was feeling no remorse for what he did in prison and until his death. And I think one of his quotes at the end was like one of his last words was "Go fuck yourself" or something like that, and they killed him.
Very cool.
And it was Dahmer had seen his reaction because it was on the news in the prison of John Wayne Casey saying that he has come to terms with what he did, and because he's religious, he was able to find solace with God, and God forgave him for his sins and stuff like that. And so John Wayne Casey was not fearful of death. Dahmer, on the other hand, was not religious up until the point of his death. He became religious. Actually, he after seeing John Wayne Casey's reaction, because ultimately what was happening with Dahmer is that he felt, when he got caught, he felt a tremendous amount of guilt in that scenario, or what would seem to be guilt, because he wished for his death. He wanted to die. So he still had trouble with his actions in prison, and was completely open. And that's typically the case with serial killers. After they are found out, they let all loose. They tell you everything. They let you know. And that comes down to other psychology as well. You can, if you look at the fictional character of Hannibal Lecter, and what has been kind of drawn on in criminal psychology is the sense of ego,
Yes.
huge egos, right? Hannibal Lecter was done really well because he had such an ego. He wanted people to know that he was smarter than them. He knew that he was smarter. He knew these things, and he wanted to make sure other people did too. So ego is a very big part of criminal psychology. And so they're more than welcome to letting you know exactly what they did. However, in the case, and what was apparent in the Dahmer series, is that it wasn't necessarily about an ego thing. He wasn't necessarily proud of any of the things he did. He was shameful. After it was found out, it affected him. You can tell that he had some things going on in his mind that sort of then turned to guilt, which is interesting because we understand that I forget which one, psychopathy or sociopathy, lends itself to having complete apathy towards other humans, like not caring what you feel. Like I could go kill your dog,
Sociopathy.
and I would not give a single fuck of how it made you feel. That is basically what that is, right? So in this case, and that was the diagnosis of Dahmer, is what you said. It was antisocial personality disorder, right?
Yep.
So it's starkly different from the narcissistic sociopathy behavior of typical serial killers, where they don't feel any remorse, because in some of the people he killed, he truly did care for, and it was just the severe, debilitating abandonment issues. Typically, his killings happen when the people would try to leave. They like go to work. That's when he would kill them. He had such severe abandonment issues that he wanted to try and make people stay, and in his completely deteriorated mindset, killing them was the only way. And so, however, John Wayne Casey, on the other hand, would, I think, align more with a sociopath, because he did not
His
care.
was very much more of a sociopath, and also signs of schizophrenia based off many different aspects.
Right.
That guy literally practically was trying to embody himself to thinking himself as godly. He thought he can have so much control and he can control his own world. Really what was divulged into it, he didn't care about. There's that. It's two different psychological aspects. Honestly, if you look at Jeffrey Dahmer, he was going through more of residual effects of trauma of his own life that developed to that monstrosity that he was becoming.
Now, I'm interested in thinking about this, because a lot of these psychiatric problems are typically thought of as being treatable with therapy or counseling. Sociopathy, I don't think, lends itself to therapy. It just is not. You can probably work through abandonment issues with therapy.
You can dilute it. That's the problem.
There's no real source of curing said issue.
I mean, if you really think of psychology right now, it's still brand new. Like we haven't even had a full decade of understanding this. We've tried. I mean, think about the early 1900s. Think about right when we started really getting into it. Lobotomy was a thing.
Yeah.
Like we still
there is still a reproducibility crisis in this field of science. Seemingly, it's also cropping up in other circles of science as well, but this one particularly, psychology, is very. It's not easily replicatable. So there's a lot of people that I talk and listen to that are like, yeah, it's not really a science. It's like, I understand what they're getting at.
One of the more interesting things about
very
this aspect
loosey-goosey.
is the mind is still largely a mystery, right? Is it's so complex, and it brings on a philosophical question that I think I've mentioned a couple times. I don't think we discussed it on the podcast. Have you heard of the connectome? Have you heard of the connectome? So I'm pretty sure I might have mentioned it to you, because you're into the psychology field. It's the thought experiment, and something that is theoretically being worked on right now, of if you have and we do this with brains all the time, we cut them super thin and we scan them with a microscope and basically make a 3D map of all the neuron connections in the brain. If we had a 100% knowledge of how the brain works, okay, we know exactly what makes it work, everything, every detail, okay? 100% knowledge of how the brain works, and we take this technique of imaging and we cut a brain super thin, map out all the connections of the neurons in the brain, all the synapses, and we were to put it in a supercomputer, could we simulate that brain? Could we simulate that person's thoughts?
It's too hard to say. It's extremely hard to say because there's too many variables that could possibly happen within that, and until we actually do know that we're not going to really fully understand it to be able.
It's super interesting, and this is the answer, which there really is not really one, but it depends on largely on who you ask and what profession they're in. If you ask a psychologist, the answer is like, it's so nuanced, it's very difficult. Like, I don't think you would necessarily be able to access memories, but I think you could sort of maybe do some sort of thought process, like, oh, like if you took Einstein's brain, you may be able to have similar abilities, or Hawkins' brain. You may be able to do some sort of similar things that he was able to.
You might be able to reflect how created.
If you ask a neurologist, a lot of neurology is saying that a lot of what makes a person is not only, of course, their previous experiences, but how the ones and zeros of the synapses fire in the brain. So in theory, yeah, in that regard, yes, you could simulate a brain. Now, would it necessarily be able to have all the memories? Maybe not. Could it be able to, give you a question, answer of how that person would have answered? Yeah. Because it's a lot of ones and zeros that fire, and yeah. Just an interesting thing, because in the history of this topic, they wanted to study Dahmer's brain. Of course, they did something that was largely illegal beforehand, because when they were doing the cremation, they retained his brain against the will of parties involved and have appropriate authority. And it was a lawsuit against the Sherry, which was the divorce family. So you had Lionel, his father, and Sherry, his mother. They were both divorced, and Sherry wanted to basically, what seemed to be motivated by monetary things, financial reasons, wanted to sell his brain to science, whereas the father was saying no. His will said he wanted to be cremated, so that means all of him. And so Lionel actually won the court case, and they destroyed the brain. The other aspect of this, which is also more interesting in the story, is so Lionel and Sherry got divorced, way back when he was a child or teenager or whatnot. The court cases, Lionel, his father, was making a book, and this is the part of the story which I find it's so macabre, because it truly is. In nature, what I'm about to describe to you is macabre. So there's no doubt that hearts and prayers go out to the families that experience these fucking horrible things, right? I could personally not imagine. There would not be walls thick enough that would stop me from killing a man who murdered my sons. There's nothing that would stop me. I would dedicate my whole life to finding that person, ending their life, because that's just kind of like the primitive, as it were, response to such a thing, right? 17 people were killed by Dahmer. Okay, 17 families were affected by his incredible mental illness. Okay, now Lionel, in attempts, in good faith, wanting to try and help parents see the signs of this sort of developing kind of behavior and mental issue, right? Wrote a book, okay? And the book was projected to make a lot of money. New York Times, a lot of money. And when the families, of course, the lawyers, mind you, the lawyers of the family found out about this, the lawyers urged the families to file a lawsuit against Lionel to get all of the money of the proceeds of the book to be split amongst the 17 families. Okay. And that was the theme for a while. So the families, all the proceeds from the book. So mind you, Lionel spent, I would say, at least a year, okay, writing a book. And all of the proceeds were split up amongst the 17 families. Okay, because it was argued in court that he was capitalizing on the tragedy of these families, when it was largely about him the raising of Dahmer, and to that effect, just be like, hey parents, please, like, this is what to look out for, this kind of behaviors and shit like that, of course, which is kind of ad hoc coming from like looking at it like psychologically speaking. It's like, because certain behaviors don't necessarily add up to the severe mental state that Dahmer was in, but it's kind of egregious, right? Because any sort of funds that Lionel could have possibly come across was to be shared amongst 17 families. Of course, like, this comes to my personal belief of like, do I necessarily believe that parents or people, victims of certain things, should be entitled to anything and everything pertaining to such things? Because at the time, remember, when Dahmer's story first came around, remember all the fans we talked about? There was such an idolization of him that comic books were made out of. So we want to talk about a group of people or a person trying to capitalize on a tragedy. And here we have comic books and shit, right? Of course, it sort of details that the families were sort of wanting to file a lawsuit to set a precedent and say like, hey, it's to make a statement and say that you can't use people's tragedy to make stories off of, because truth be told, like, Dahmer was made into a fucking comic book, right? He was made into a comic book, and he was trying to be portrayed as something like a superhero or a villain, right? Very, very, very macabre and gross, right?
Very, yeah.
But instead, they go after the father, who personally, it was very hard not to be emotional in that film. It was so well done that when, of course, you put yourself in the mindset of this father, me as a father personally, you walk into a coroner's office and you see your son dead on a table, right? And it was it's a sad feeling. Even though I knew that this man was responsible for 17 people's death. One person was 14 years old. I knew that. But I was feeling for the father. Right. And this person, this father, who, of course, this depends on who you ask, who's responsible for their children's actions? It depends on what. If it's fucking petty theft, right, and they're like going to steal shit, yeah, I guess it's the parents' fault. But if it's like such a major psychological issue, personally, I think that Sherry, who basically left Jeffrey Dahmer alone in the house for like 6 months while his father was on a business trip or doing something, I forget what, she's largely to blame. That's the abandonment issues. Was left alone for 6 months at the age of like 16. Ridiculous. That man was just trying to help. He was just trying to write a story, detail what was happening in his life to lead to this moment. And he was robbed, personally, I think, of all of that money that was gotten for the book. Whereas the comic book store and comic writers were able to have all that money and all these fucking comics. One, and mostly this segment, we want to give a little backstory about Dahmer. This is about the fucking obsession with Dahmer. People were obsessed. Okay, and here we are, and I really find it interesting how like there's sort of like a reiteration of documentaries that come out. We like, well, there hasn't been a fucking documentary about the Titanic in 20 years. I guess we got to make a new one. So here we are. There's another docuseries detailing what happened with Dahmer. And it's just going to rekindle the obsession with Dahmer. And there was actually things put out in the news like, hey, we advise that you don't dress up like Jeffrey Dahmer for Halloween. Which I guarantee you, I will put money on it. Fuck tons of people are going to dress up as Jeffrey Dahmer.
Especially how much.
One, because
spotlight
people are
right now.
sick. Two, because they were told no.
Honestly, listen,
Like-
they're just gonna be a bunch of what do they call it? Not sellouts, but like
Bandwagoners.
no, they're just posers.
Clout
They're not gonna
chasers?
kill nobody on Halloween. That's fucking
Stupid.
lame as fuck.
No. There are people who are out there that like to be copycats, and they're so obsessed with it, and they will.
Yeah.
There is going to be, I promise, somebody that is sick enough to copycat. They are already trying. They're already plotting how to do this.
So, in our final note, because this podcast is already almost 2 hours long.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
We're
in our-
looking at a gun on Instagram.
Oh,
sorry.
nice. In our final
If anyone heard that
talking
audio.
point, the Twitter deal with Musk is finally approved and done.
He owns bird shit site. That's
Yes,
crazy.
He owns bird shit site.
He actually got it.
And honestly, we've talked about Twitter so
Yeah,
much
we
in the
have.
past that we're not
It
even
makes me
gonna
sick.
mention it Or like, yeah, it's
I just
done
find it
now.
funny. He's buying everything.
Yeah,
This man wants to buy everything.
he's done. So Elon Musk
I-
now owns Twitter.
I hope to God he buys Bethesda.
Huh?
If this man buys Bethesda,
Why? They're already doing really well as it is because
No.
people just keep on buying their fucking games.
that's not why.
Keep
I want
releasing the
him-
only game that anyone plays.
What?
Skyrim.
All right. Well,
You're wrong.
thank you all so much for tuning into the whole magazine.
Bitch.
It was a
And
great
as,
show.
yeah, and as always, have a good one.
Thank you.